What's going on, everyone? It's BRAP. I lost a Nate. I have a Nate with me. I don't know where he went though. Hold on a sec here. What is going on? There we go. Nate's back. All right, Nate is back. Let me get him back in here. There he is. Nate, welcome to BRAP, sir. I think he was having some technical difficulties earlier, and I think he stepped away. Hopefully everything's all right now on your end, Nate. But
Yeah, I should be good. I'm just it still wants to put you out of my speakers for some
yeah,
reason, and I
I
have
don't
no
know.
idea.
I don't know. Well, it's Friday, the last day of February. I'm looking forward to March. I'm looking forward to moving the seasons forward. Hopefully, into spring. I'm done with winter. Yeah, but and Nate, great to have you on. Thanks for joining us, man.
No, I appreciate it, man. I'm always glad to stop through. BRAP is always a good time.
Thank you,
One
sir.
of the
I
few
appreciate
places I
that.
can get actual, reliable, reported gaming news, unlike most other podcasts.
Yeah, you mean like retired police officers who yeah, who I I don't even know the fuck I I don't even I don't even know what to say about that. It's just
But it's crazy because
I
it's
don't
not
know,
even
man.
just him anymore. Like I was listening to something earlier and they were just saying the most crazy, like outlandish things. And I was like, what? I was like, when did gaming, like talking about gaming and like the current gaming landscape become like just make it up as you go?
I
Like
mean,
it was
that's
so
yeah.
weird.
That's what it seems like. It's like make it up as you go. Don't do any research. And it's crazy because in the day and age of the internet, like we have all this access to information and data. We should be having better conversations. And then yet here we are. We just don't have those conversations. And often the channels that have the most, viewers and followers are the ones that are just get it wrong and just like blatantly lie about stuff and it just makes shit up for the fucking sake of making shit up. I don't get it. It's mind boggling to me.
Yeah,
Um,
man, it's wild. I was listening to one earlier and I was just the thing people have to understand is like I'm someone, especially when it comes to gaming, it's one of my passions as well as anime, right? I always tell people I want to give people the best suggestions, right? Because I want them to fall in love with the things that I love, right? So why wouldn't you give them the best suggestions, right? But then I heard somebody she was talking about her friend, her friend wants to, she goes, oh, I want to pick up a console. And she goes, all right, well, what do you want to play? Which is, great. I'm like, oh, well, we're off to a great start. This is going to be great. And her friend says, Grand Theft Auto and GTA is all I can really think of right now. And I was like,
mm,
okay, fair game. That puts you on, if that's all you're really going to play, that puts you on fair game between both platforms, right? Cool. Let me break down my point from there would be, let me break down the benefits of both. Let me show you what's available that you might be interested in on both, and then let you make the decision. But she just went, oh, well, that's all you want to play? Pfft, get an Xbox. No problem. Yeah, just go ahead and get an Xbox. You're good to go. Like, and I was like, why would you? I was like, you really just, your friend came to you and you're supposed to be the one that's in the know. And it's like that was just the notion. And I'm not saying the person's not gonna like it, right? Like if that's truly all they play, it's not gonna really make much of a difference. But the first thing I've discovered when people come to me and they don't know what they want to play, they're kind of in that middle of the road. I want a console. Um, I always point out, the games on each one, the benefits of each one. A friend of mine, he's literally played on Xbox his whole life, right? He's always been an Xbox guy. He tells me, hey, I want an Xbox. And I was like, let me lay it out for you though. And I did. And in the end, he was like, yeah, I still want an Xbox. And he basically just plays Call of Duty and NBA 2K. So it really doesn't matter. But I still told him, like, hey, here's Game Pass, this, that, and the third. So it's like it's not against Xbox, right? We're just trying to get people to expand and play more games and enjoy the hobby in a very honest way. But it's like, I don't know what people have against that.
yeah, I don't know, man. That's
Yeah.
a great question. It's a great question, but so I know you're playing a couple games right now, Nate. We'll get into that here in a little bit. I also
Hmm.
want to give a big shout out to everyone and that's listening to us live. Thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with us this Friday evening. please do the YouTube thing, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. And this is for those who aren't aware, this is our new day that we or evening or whatever that we podcast. We used to go live every Wednesday nights. We did that for a long time, many years. But we've decided to move the show to Friday nights now. A little bit easier on everyone's schedule here. So, Nate, I do want to get to some gaming related news here. Do have some Halo Infinite news, which it's always exciting to talk about Halo Infinite. Actually, despite some of the challenges of Halo Infinite, I do actually. Hold on a sec here. Sorry, I had to adjust my mic. I do actually, I do enjoy Halo Infinite. Like I had a blast playing it. But I also had some issues. But again, I had fun playing it. Like I had a good time playing with Forte, Slow Mo, Game Logic. I haven't played in probably a year now. Probably it feels like a year. Probably has been a year since I played Halo Infinite. But anyway, we do have some Halo Infinite news, and so Halo Studios has revealed that they have an upcoming tactical shooter game mode. And so they revealed something called it's Seek and Deploy Extraction. It's an upcoming game mode for Halo Infinite, aiming to capture tactical shooter market. This is based on an article by GamerRant by Daniel Morris. Actually, let me share this here, Nate.
All right.
And Nate, did you play Halo Infinite? I don't remember if you did or not.
I did play. I played it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I'm not the biggest Halo fan, but I had some fun. I played with one of my boys, Sonny. He's a big Halo guy, and I promised him I'd play with him, and we had fun. It was enjoyable. I'm just not man. It's just more so. It's not really Halo, so I never give Halo crap for it. It's like when it comes to competitive shooters, it's like I played COD and like Destiny. Like, and that was it. Like over the course of like the entire time, I've never really gotten into any other competitive shooters. So, but yeah, I enjoyed my time. It was a good time. But it's crazy to see them coming out with a new mode like this late in the game. I mean, tactical shooter has me intrigued, is what I'll say, because I love tactical.
Yeah, it's kind of intriguing, right? Especially when on Halo. So, the Seek and Deploy Extraction is a single life round based 4v4 mode with an economy system and best of 11 matches for swift gameplay. So, Halo, I'm going to read the article here. Halo Studios has revealed against Seek and Deploy. This game mode has been dubbed as Halo Infinite's attempt to capture the tactical shooter market. Over 3 years after its release, Halo Infinite continues to evolve in interesting ways. At launch, the game was panned by many fans for missing modes that have been staples in this series for years, notably Forge mode. It was a rough period, but continued support from 343 Industries, now Halo Studios, has ensured that the game has continued to thrive, offering tons of unique experiences for players. Last year, Halo Infinite even got a third-person mode, which I thought was cool. Total shift in perspective from what players are used to. Now it seems that the game is putting its own spin on another popular genre. Look, I think this is cool. I don't know if it's something I'm going to play, but I like that they're still adding different flavors to different game types on Halo Infinite. Actually, I may go back and even try this now. I haven't played Halo in a long time, so this is something I may give it a go. In a post on Halo Waypoint, Halo Studios revealed Seek and Deploy Extraction. The trailer for the game mode confirmed that is Halo's version of the popular tactical shooter mode, with obvious comparisons made to titles like Counter-Strike 2, Valorant, Call of Duty Search and Destroy mode, albeit with a Halo twist. This Halo Infinite game mode will be best of 11, ensure the game matches are swift compared to other games in the genre. So that is the latest and greatest on Halo. What do you think, Nate?
I mean, it kind of sounds like an attempt to give people a feel for something like Rainbow Six Siege. Like I said, that more tactical, fast paced, round based. Get in and get out. I think the more interesting thing about it in their case, their spin on it seems to be the economy. Because there's no real economy in Rainbow Six. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. As far as like getting different loadouts, special weapons. I know there's some pretty strong weapons. I know a lot of people like to mess with like the hammer and stuff like that in Infinite. So I'm interested to see how it plays out. Obviously, it sounds like they're going to have some smaller maps to adjust for that as well. So I'm interested. I just got to see. I need to see more. I need to see it in action to really see how I feel about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just I think it's cool that they're supporting this or supporting this still supporting the game and adding it some new variations, some new flavors to the game modes. Um I may give it a try, see what it's like. Again, I haven't played Halo Infinite in a long time, but who knows? Maybe again, I don't even know if this is something that will stick with me, but or that I'll stick with. But I guess what's going to be interesting too is curious to see if it brings back some of the. I'll play the trailer here. Oops, hold on a second. Hold on, let me play this trailer here. They did show the trailer. And why can't I see the trailer now? All right, it's not working for some reason. Anyhow, all right. So yeah, something that I'm just curious to see, like, if it's going to bring back maybe some of the players that maybe have left Halo. I know one of the things that we were playing it on a regular basis. We'd often come across like the same players like in consecutive games. Like you'd be playing like a game of you'd be playing like I don't know, like team deathmatch or something, and then you'd finish that round of team deathmatch, go into a new round, a new game, and then be like the same team you played the last game, and it would be
Yeah,
like that for a couple games.
that can definitely get annoying. I am not a fan of that. It's funny, Logic popped in because he's actually mentioned how annoying that can be when you play certain games and like the way people want to leave those type of games when you're coming across the same annoying people, especially if you don't, you're like, oh, here's that annoying 1556 shooter or whatever on the other team who always no scope 360s me. Like it gets annoying playing the same people. You want as big a pool as possible to play. So yeah, that's definitely not a good thing.
Yeah. What's that note when I introduced Logic to the show? Logic. Good evening, sir. How are you? How are you?
Good, man. Good. And as usual in the chat, if my mic is too low or too loud, please let me know. Yeah, it's not even a matter of like running into those irritating people. It's just proof that the game is dying, right? And like the gravitate, like the life's blood of a live service game is maximum number of players. And if people aren't playing it, then like why would I want to be there?
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, Logic, if you caught the news of the new game mode that's coming out of Halo Infinite. They're adding an extraction mode, 4v4.
Well, we know how I feel about extraction modes, and we know how I feel about Halo Infinite. So 2 for 2.
That would be a no for Logic. I would just say, I just curious to see if this brings back some players back, but you don't think it will. You don't think it's going to move the needle a little bit.
No. Players either behind the veil or coming into the fold want to be where all the other players are, and all the other players aren't on Halo. Piscatella just talked about this right a couple of weeks ago. Like there's a top 10 games on console, especially that are multiplayer games as a service. 40% of gamers when they turn their console on, or 30% of gamers when they turn their console on will play those games, and 40% of the total player population on those consoles our gamers will spend 40% of their total time on those consoles in a month on those games. So, I mean, Halo Infinite adding an extraction mode doesn't change the gravimetric balance in the universe. So,
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think everything else is too hot right now. Marvel Rivals, COD just got, its new season not too long ago. Everybody's still grinding that out. Fortnite literally just hit part 2 of season 6. Like all the hot stuff is hitting on all cylinders. And the one mode, I mean, this would have to be phenomenal. Like this would have to be absolutely insane to draw anyone, and I just don't see it happening.
yeah, and I mean, I've commented before that I think extraction modes are overrated. Like they don't move the needle on the market. They're just because of the definition of, and it's the definition of them is why they're attractive to people, right? They're brutal. There's a lot of seal clubbing. It's no quarter given, none taken, right? It's survival of the fittest. It's eat or be eaten, and that's just not appealing to a ton of people. Particularly people who, I mean, the reason Helldivers is so big is because it's co-op and PvE, right? That's what gets people into the pool, because the people who aren't super competitive and don't want to be sweaty every single night in every single session, they don't play those games, and so those people aren't going to play extraction mode, and Halo Infinite is already fighting an uphill battle to even stay relevant, right, with its player base.
Yeah, no, those are all fair. Those are fair points across the board. I mean, I don't disagree. Halo Infinite definitely has it's definitely struggled to find its footing, more or less, which is kind of a shame, given, at least for me, given the history of the Halo franchise. So I do want to move on to another news item here. Hamp, I don't know if you saw this, but let me pull up the article again. I keep forgetting to do that. I apologize for not sending topics out, gentlemen. I'll have to share a story with you guys after the show ends. I don't want to share while I live. Just having issues here at the house.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, like issues that issues from outside. Just leave it at that.
I'm color me interested.
Yeah.
We'll wait till after the credits roll,
All right. Article here about Game Rant, James Ratcliffe. All right. So AMD has posted that its upcoming flagship graphics cards, the Radeon RX 9070 and RX 9070 XT, will be released on Thursday, March 6th. It's next week's, folks. That's next week. That's a week from now. The new AMD graphics card will also retail at an attractive price point of just under $600. As the Radeon RX 9000. Did I say 900? I did say 900, didn't I? I meant the 9070, 90. Okay. Anyhow, the Radeon RX 9000 lineup looks to compete directly against NVIDIA's RTX 50 series of GPUs. News launch of the Radeon RX 9000 GPUs came following some controversy from its chief competitor. In early 2025, NVIDIA launched the RTX 5090, 5080, and 5070 Ti GPUs, which sold out as quickly as they arrived, although some PC builders were successful in purchasing a new card at MSRP. Most of NVIDIA's new stock has been scalped with markups reaching the $3,000 mark. Sadly, AMD has not escaped the gaze of scalpers either. Some of the outgoing cards, like the Radeon RX 7900 XTX, have been resold at prices upwards to $1,000 due to dwindling stock. Demand from gamers. Despite the state of the graphics card market, AMD will soon introduce its first RDNA 4 GPUs. According to AMD, the Radeon RX 9070 and RX 9070 XT. I already read that. I don't know why it's repeating. Okay, so there we go. That's the news right here. Here we go. And this is the tweet from Radeon. So you guys are glad you guys are on the show. That you guys are primarily PC gamers. What do you think about the GPUs, Nate?
I mean, honestly, I was just more so excited about the price point, because the lower the starting MSRP, the less, you tend to get price gouged from the AIB cards. So hopefully they can manage to keep that price down somewhat. I'm also excited about the speed that they're entering the market. The sooner, you can flood the market with new GPUs, the better. Just because eventually it'll balance out, and that need for them will start to wane, and you'll start to get lesser prices closer towards MSRP if you can't get one at that suggested retail price. I did see some of the comparisons they posted with the 5070 Ti and some other things. Again, the thing with that, like, it looks great, but you got to see real world performance, how that's going to actually balance out in multiple games. I do agree with one of the guys that I tend to watch. I mean, most people who are into PC gaming have watched one of Daniel Owen's videos. Slomo mentions them all the time. But yeah, when he was talking about it, he was kind of saying the same thing. This looks really great. and they chose like a wide variety of games to show in one of the slides that they sent out against it. And like I said, if it all balances out, I mean, they're looking pretty good. One of the main ones I wanted to highlight though that looked really good and played really smooth on the 9070 that they showcased was obviously Monster Hunter Wilds, because we got a lot of older GPU people complaining right now, trying to play Monster Hunter Wilds and not reading, the recommended specs, and are angry that they're crashing or they don't have enough VRAM or all this other stuff. And then of course the other thing with these that comes with that is 16 gigabytes of VRAM. So you can kind of toss that out the window if you manage to get one of these. Like I said, all things considered, everything they showed looks really good, but again, we just got to get them out in the market, see how they balance out, and see if that quote unquote wide availability holds up.
All right, Logic, what are your thoughts on the AMD Radeon RX 9000 or 9000 GPUs?
It's kind of nice, as Nate mentioned, right? But it'll wind up being largely irrelevant. AMD tries and they do good stuff. I agree, it's good that it's entering, at a low price point. And AMD does have an opportunity here. Ramon Terrell, friend of the show, who's in the chat, mentioned this on Blue Sky the other day, that there was a window here. And I kind of poo-pooed that idea, but I'll walk that back a little, just in terms of, and I don't know, because it's been moving around a lot, and so it may have been a moment in time where what was going on with the 5000 series cards wasn't quite as extreme. But right now, every single one of the 5000 series, of the RTX 5000 series product lines from NVIDIA, and I'm differentiating product lines from SKUs. SKUs would be 4, but there's 3 product lines, right? The 5060, the 5070, 5080, and 5090. The 5060 have yet to appear, and the 5050 has yet to appear. I'm also not decomping the 2 SKUs in the 5070 product line between the 5070 and the 5070 Ti, because we haven't seen this in the 5070 yet. But in instances of the 5090, the 5080, and the 5070 Ti, all 3 of those cards have been found in the wild to be missing ROPs, or render output processors, right? So my own recommendation to people has been, stay out of the pool for right now. There is a manufacturing defect that is going out to product, which means there's a percentage chance, however low, that you may be a person who gets this card. And unless you are comfortable just rolling the dice or dealing with RMAs, then I would just not upgrade right now. I would just hold on to what you got. Wait, this is to me is similar to the 4090 12-volt high power pin issue, right? Setting things on fire. Obviously not as extreme, but still the point is, in that it's like a missing ROP isn't going to take down your whole PC along with it, right? And potentially burn your motherboard and your power supply, and you have to replace other parts. But the point still remains, I'm not getting out over my skis, spending $1,000 on a part just to have it come in and be a defect. So AMD does have an opportunity here to seed cards in the market and hit people who are just absolutely insistent that they upgrade right now, right? And they're unwilling to wait 6 months. There are demographics like that on the market. As I mentioned to Ramon Terrell, right, Radeon people will have a certain perspective. My personal perspective is I shouldn't have to boot Windows into safe mode and DDU my drivers just in order to do a driver update. And for me, being a content creator, having to do that in conjunction with the fact that the Radeon cards aren't as good when it comes to live streaming and recording and things like that. Granted, I get that that's not a huge part of the market, right? That's a very small percentage. But those things matter to me. So I'm not gonna. I have zero interest in a Radeon card after having tried to run 3 of them and basically coming up with the only solution that makes them at all a viable solution is when I run a Linux box, right, and use that for gaming. So, AMD has an opportunity here, but it's a small opportunity. and they're not going up against the 5090. I haven't seen enough of the benchmarks here, and I don't think they're up against the 5080. I think these two cards are going to come in somewhere between the 5070 and 5070 Ti, and so that will be the price. So the question will be, for the people who's okay dealing with the inconvenience, in order to get good rasterization performance at a lower price, at the cost of, again, convenience, and maybe not getting as good a ray tracing, depending on what things matter to you.
Yeah. So what are so I'm sorry, and you may have said this already, Logic, but where do these cards, these AMD cards, slot in comparison to the 50 series cards? Are they like the equivalent of like a 5070?
I haven't seen benchmarks, or again,
Okay.
because I don't think that they're going to be relevant on the market. Even when I see
Yeah.
benchmarks, I think they're going to come in between the 5070 and the 5070 Ti.
Yeah, so yeah, they did actually confirm it. Like you said, on real world performance, it's gonna vary. They did state on stage though that the 9070 XT is 2% below the 5070 Ti. So it's kind of interesting for them to admit that. Most places will not admit that. They're like, nah, we got them by 5%. They want to get them by something, but they actually admitted it. So again, they seem pretty upfront. Like Logic said, we got to see how all this stuff, we got to see how RDNA 4 really performs. Like I said, all the stuff that they talked about looked really good. They really focused on increasing their ray tracing performance, which, again, whether you like ray tracing or not, the reality is a lot of games are forcing it. So you want at least decent performance in ray tracing if you need it. So they've done a pretty good job updating everything. Like I said, if everything sticks to landing and they can avoid that defect, like you said, missing the ROPS there as well. I mean, like I said, they have an opportunity, but I do agree it's a small one. I was gonna say the one thing though that you were saying about the having to remove the drivers that way just to do the driver update. For some reason, I haven't had to do it, but I only have one, right? I built one for my niece, and she has, I think, the 6700. I could be wrong. But yeah, when I update it, it seems to take just fine via Adrenaline. But obviously, even if it takes, it's still, their drivers are never as good as they should be.
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely accept that there are that there are instances of people out there having that don't have problems, or don't have problems for a period of time. My own experience in trying to
Yeah.
run them over a period of 2 years is I also went for a period of time where I didn't have problems. Or like when you install it in a new box, you're able to go for a while without having problems. But then eventually what I found is that, like, the longer you run it, right, like you eventually hit having problems.
Okay, it's like stacking up.
Well,
Gotcha.
and those problems are generated by, for me, mostly they're generated by the fact that Windows includes the AMD drivers in its Windows update. And so what happens is, but they're like a stock generic driver. And so what happens is you get them in a Windows update, and then Windows pops, hey, I've got two sets of Adrenaline drivers that are in conflict. And then that's what forces you to have to go into DDU, right, into safe mode, DDU drivers, wipe everything out in association with Radeon, and then install those drivers in safe, and then pop back in. Now, there's things you can do. You can, and this is what I found for me was unsuccessful. You can hit a toggle within Windows to tell it to never update device drivers, but take every other driver. But despite the fact that I did that, I would always eventually wind up getting an AMD driver coming through. So like that would work for a while, and then eventually I would get it. There's another thing you can do where you can, like, you can, I think if you go to, you can either go to Windows 11 Pro, or hack the registry, or do something to enable a domain level access on your box, and then go in as system administrator and take your box entirely out of the update ring, so that the only way you get updates is when you manually do that. Like that right there, like the degree to which I had to describe that, right, tells you that that's
Yeah,
way
that's a-
too much
that's a
crap
lot.
for me to have to be bothered with, right? Whereas, and again, this is all in comparison to, I mean, and already on GeForce drivers, I don't even use the uber convenience of GeForce, right? The uber convenience of GeForce is you just pop the NVIDIA app, download the drivers from inside the app and run, and then the install runs, right? That's the
Yeah.
super convenience. I don't even do that. I still manually go to the web, manually like search for the drivers for my card, for my operating system, install them, and then I run a fresh install every single time, right? So I run within the NVIDIA auto executable or within the NVIDIA installation executable, the command to wipe the drivers and do a clean install. So I already don't even use the Uber convenience, and that's still like 100 times
It's
more
still
convenient than
easier.
what I have to do. Yeah. So that's just been
Yeah.
my experience.
No, that makes sense, and I do concur with what you're saying because a big reason why when I had 5770s and eventually 5770s in Crossfire back in the day, I mean, they worked, but like it was always like, all right, this is just till I can get back to NVIDIA. Like it's always been that way. And Priscilla did correct me.
Mm.
My niece's graphics card is a RX 7600. She had to yell at me across the house. So make sure I got that right.
She's like, no, you got it wrong.
She's like, don't be getting my tech wrong.
That's funny.
But look, I mean, the good thing about it is they're inexpensive, right? And so for people who are being challenged and are being, you know, these aren't my own terms, but you know, the broken silicon guys use this, right? Like there are people who got on board right into PC gaming, particularly. I think I mentioned this to Ramon, that like in this era where, you know, like streamers
in this era.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try and quickly go through how this societal evolution has taken place, right? Live streamers who want to make money as an adjunct means of income or make it their primary means of income come into streaming on a console, right? They gather a following when they're on like a crappy camera and a horrific streaming setup. They eventually get told, hey, to really upgrade up the cleanness of your stream, you really need to stream out of a PC. So even if you're still on console, you send the console to a capture card, you send it out of your PC, you get a really clean picture. Then they get told, upgrade all your other stuff, your camera, your microphone, blah, blah, blah. They get a PC that is gaming capable because people tell them that's the GPU they need, right, to live stream, even though you don't need a GPU to live stream. You can live stream off the CPU. And in fact, live streaming off the CPU is often better than live streaming off the GPU, but that's a bunch of tech stuff I won't get into tonight. So now they have a gaming PC. Eventually they shrug their shoulders and they go, hey, I have this gaming PC. Why would I not just play games on it and live stream off of it? Right. So that's the evolution of the live streamer. The live streamer now has followers and they're broadcasting to all their followers. You guys should just all game on PC. Right. So we have through this societal evolution, we now have a bunch of people in the PC gaming space who actually know absolutely nothing about PCs, right? They don't know the tech that's in their body. Like, and I've done this experiment. I've gone into a popular live streamer's right, like stream, and you know, just casually started a question and like ask them, hey, you know, how big is your power supply? And so many of them have just gone to Shroud's page or gone to a streamer's page and just copied their specs and like gone to a place and said, hey, I need a box with these, right? So now all these people are in the PC gaming space, but those people came in at a time before like the crypto like thing or whatever, and were able to get PCs or just bought a pre-built, and now they're hitting this point where they need to upgrade, right? And so some of those people have now been priced out of the market because of the crypto craze and the supply constraints of the pandemic, and now GPUs are $1,000, right? So AMD is doing a good thing. They're putting out a card that's in the $500 MSRP range, and that's going to be good for people. One thing of note, so this time around there are no AMD reference cards. So that MSRP you're seeing is like not a price you're going to see on the actual market anytime until like 2 or 3 years from now when prices apogee and then come back down. That's the MSRP. That's the target price that is determining how much AMD is selling the chips to the third-party vendors for. All the AIBs that come out are probably all going to be north of that. There may be 1 or 2 SKUs out there that are extremely cheap, maybe from not like super reputable vendor names. So I might not, fly too close to the sun with those. But in general, most of your AMD cards that are going to be coming out are going to be north of that for MSRP as AIBs.
That's interesting. I didn't actually know that there weren't going to be any reference cards. That does kind of suck because one of the way your GPU looks is pretty irrelevant. But one of the flyest looking AMD cards.
Well, if it has
last time around-
RGBs, then you know it's faster.
Yeah, they tell you that
Oh.
all the time. It adds like 10.
Are we,
It adds 10 more. 10
are
more.
we slandering RGBs here? I feel judged.
No, you don't gotta feel
RGBs,
judged.
okay.
My computer is currently on rainbow mode, so don't even worry about that.
Right. Well, real quick, let me just interject here. So it seems like at least with these series of cards, because and I really don't follow AMD cards. I've never really been interested. I had AMD CPUs before, but never the GPUs. I've always been an NVIDIA consumer. But these seem like what you guys are describing seems like these are like value proposition or like value cards or cards that would be like a good maybe entry point for someone new to PC gaming.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
I mean, in older games, like you have some grognards who swear by Radeon cards, right? And again, my assessment is they've become numbed over time, right? Linkin Park's "Numb," by the way, a song still slaps. Anyway, but people, people have just become, those people have become inoculated. Like booting into safe mode and DDUing their drivers is not a big deal to them. And again, I get this because I pulled this
that
thread.
doesn't sound okay with me, by the way, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, in a day and age where like I grew up on Windows 98 XP SE, and then booting into safe mode was just like a very like normal thing. Like today, for Windows 10 and 11 users, I guarantee you the vast majority of even PC gamers don't even know how to get into safe. I have to look up and be reminded how the hell you get into safe mode.
Same.
You know, like and I literally build PCs. I have 5 PCs in this room, right? And I don't know off the top of my head how to get into safe mode because number one, because I never have to do it anymore. In Windows 98 SE, you used to have to go into safe mode like half the time that you booted your PC. Right, to configure something or to mess with something that was, at some setting level that you couldn't get to. So, but I mean, but I pull this thread with people with, Radeon diehards, and they will say, yeah, I've run Radeons for 20 years and I never had a problem. But then again, you pull the thread, you start hitting things that don't pass the smell test, and you find out that they're doing these things. The problem is for the rest of us, in their minds, those things are normal, so they're not a big deal.
So it's not a big deal because they're
Right.
used to doing it. Yeah. No, I get that. I mean, like if you like that would be a big deal to me. That's not my world. I want to plug and play as much as possible on PC. Not always the case.
Yeah, I was gonna say I did notice Mary talking in the chat. Okay, I'll give you this, Mary. It can get complicated, and I definitely don't recommend everybody to get into PC gaming. I will definitely tell people, if you just want to, kick it in game, definitely get that PlayStation. But the reality is, I'll give you one thing. If I built you a PC and you used it exactly as intended, as if you only, you updated your drivers via the NVIDIA app and you just went on YouTube and, you downloaded your games via Steam, I promise you never run into an issue that wouldn't pop up on anything else. Like it would be flawless.
I gotta disagree with you there on Innate.
I'm a beast. Okay, I know how to do this.
I get your point. I get your point. The problem is all of the devils that are out there working against you, because Microsoft would hear your claim and want to have words with you.
I mean, okay, you're not wrong. They're like, yeah, we're gonna release 21.2 or whatever, and it's gonna be like, all right, everything's imploding.
And brick your machine. Oh, but here we'll post the instructions for how to restore it online.
Oh my god!
But I mean, I think I would calibrate your statement with there's a 97% chance you're going to be fine.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. There you
The
go.
problem becomes that 3%. Right, that 3%. That 3% can be horrific. Right.
So.
What I would say then you need to take what Innate said and add a couple other things. And again, PC gamers don't do, amazingly live streamers don't do, even though their livelihood depends on this. And that's number one, get an uninterruptible power supply, and plug your PC and all your peripherals and stuff into that, so that if you drop power in your house, your PC doesn't brown out. Because if you don't know anything about electricity, let me make sure that you understand. dropping power is less damaging to something like a PC than a brownout, right? Which is a slow, gradual like loss of voltage. And that tends to happen a lot when you're not on a power supply. You don't just drop power, right? But it just kind of like it drops in 2 or 3 increments, and that's bad. And then also, again, thing that PC gamers don't do is then run imaging software, right? So again, these are things you wind up paying for, right? When I build a PC, particularly when I build something that sucks a lot of additional power beyond whatever my last box did, because I'm upgrading the CPU, I'm putting in a huge GPU that draws a lot more power. I will outstrip whatever ups I'm on, and so I have to budget for an additional ups, and that's sometimes an additional $300.
Yeah, that's true.
And then you need to run imaging software, right? So that like on a monthly basis, you snap an image of your PC. So if your PC just craps the bed, you just wipe the operating system hard drive and then restore the image to the hard drive. You're not reinstalling Windows and reinstalling all your games and blah 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 blah. That's just those are two critical resilience things that most people don't do.
Yeah, lesson learned. I actually did not do that, and I had to reinstall my operating system. I mean, that. And to your point, I think it was your logic. Like I think you said, like 97% of the time you're okay, but when that 3% happens, it's like, ooh, like I've had that 3%. And that's when I had to reinstall the operating system. Now it wasn't too difficult to reinstall the operating system. It was a process, but I did it. But then, to your point, logic, like I had to reinstall everything. My games.
Well, yeah, but you're also surrounded by us, right? So it's like a lot of these people.
This is pre us, by the way. This happened on my the rig that I had like before. Yeah. So
okay, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like most of these people, like he said, though, when you go in there and you're like, hey, what graphics card are you running? Like that is a super regular question, and like most of these people are like, graphics card? I don't know. It's one of them big ones that just came out. Like it's like what? Like,
it's the green one.
Yeah, the green one.
I don't know. My PC gaming buddy recommended it to me, or I just bought the one that the store recommended.
Yeah, I don't know, but it cost $5,000. Oh, did it? That's my favorite. It's expensive, so it's good.
Oh, did it?
I was like, man, I'd love to sell you a car.
That is funny, man. That's funny. Yeah. No, but no, I mean, yeah, those things do happen. But no, this card, I mean, I'm looking at the price point. I've seen a couple I've seen some commentary on social media. Some people seem generally excited about this GPU, given the price point, the fact that it has 16 gigabytes of memory, ray tracing, AI accelerators, seems to have all the pretty much many bells and whistles for the modern enthusiast, if you will.
It does, and the key, right, to remember, like you said, is that price point they're coming in at is super popular right now, and a ton of people are well under that amount of VRAM, and they are running into problems running a lot of games. Like, I mean, half the complaints right now for Monster Hunter Wilds are people just trying to run it on like an 8 gigabyte VRAM card, and they're freaking out. So yeah, it's definitely a good place for them.
And even still, that's got. I mean, we'll probably talk about Monster Hunter Wilds tonight. Like, but that's got to be people. I don't want to say not knowing what they're doing, but like the game has a meter in the settings that tells you how much VRAM. Like, and all you have to do is reduce the settings until the little yellow meter is below the gray line. Like, I really
reduce the settings.
I don't get it.
Yeah,
that's actually kind of funny. Yeah.
Somebody actually asked me that the other day, and thankfully they upgraded to a 4070 Super, so they're okay. But he was asking me, that was that comment that Logic jumped in on the other day. Oh yeah, and to answer your question, yeah, I could have turned it down. I was just explaining to him that I play at 1440p ultra wide, because people always get caught up on 1440p as if it's like one thing, but people call like everything 1440p, and I'm like, nah, this takes way more juice.
Right. Yeah. And it does have an aspect ratio toggle. So, and I mean, I know you were explaining it, but just for everybody else, like if you're Like, and that's an option, right? If you're on an ultra wide monitor and you're trying to run at 3440 by 1440p, you can change it. You can change it to 2560 by 1440p and still be at 21:9 aspect ratio, right?
Yep.
But you can also reduce it back to a 16:9 aspect ratio and run it at 2560 by 1440. Maybe I said that incorrectly, but yeah, I mean, you can run it at the lower res, but run it at a resolution for a regular monitor and use less juice, right? And therefore get additional frames and maybe, start maneuvering around some of the problems that you might be running into.
All right, let's move on to Forza Horizon 5. We got a PlayStation 5 release date, price confirmed. This is again Game Rant. Forza Horizon 5 is set to release on PlayStation 5 October, or not October. I don't know why I said October. April 29th. April 29th of this year. So, Hamp, I might add this is the definitive racer on the PlayStation now. Yeah, so April 29th, and those who purchase it's going to have a $100 premium edition, which will give you 4 days early access, and the standard version will be $60, which may raise some eyebrows since the game has been available on Xbox and PC since 2021, but it hasn't been available to PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5 can expect top-tier performance at 60 frames per second in performance mode, or choose quality mode at 30 FPS with ray tracing, car reflections for more immersive for an even more immersive ride, especially if they got a PlayStation 5 Pro. Plus, the game supports cross-platform multiplayer, so PS5 players can race alongside Xbox and PC folks. So there you go. Forza Horizon 5 coming out April 29th on PlayStation.
So the thing I'm salty about,
yes,
and I do need to mention one last thing about the AMD story, just again to warn users. Right. Also, don't assume that AMD Radeon cards coming out, even though they're at an attractive price point, means that you should jump in the pool as an early adopter right off the bat. Reminder that the 7900 XTX and 7900 XT both had reported issues at launch. Users experiencing issues like random crashes, driver timeouts, black screens, and instability. Many attributing these issues to potential driver bugs and hardware defects with GPUs themselves, including some faulty engineering associated with the vapor chamber design. Because remember, again, these won't be first-party cards. So if there's cooling solutions that are part of the tech that are recommended by AMD, it's not AMD implementing them; it's integrators implementing them. So I would let them launch. Let people like Hardware Nexus, Hardware Unboxed, Digital Front, let those people troubleshoot them and surface all of the RMA type issues and wait until you know that it's safe to go into the pool. So back on Forza Horizon, the thing I'm salty about is, almost regardless of them going to PlayStation 5, Forza games have been coming out on the Xbox Series X with a 30 frame per second performance mode or quality mode and a 60 frame per second performance mode since the beginning of the generation. Gran Turismo has a 120 or as a 4K 120 mode. Why, after 5 years on this engine, and Forza Motorsport is on a more advanced engine, right? But why we're still on this engine and they haven't implemented higher performance modes, I don't understand.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, that is a fair point, Logic. That is a fair point.
I mean, I'm like you said in general. I mean, I'm glad a lot of people who just they don't have an Xbox or they don't play on PC are finally going to get a chance to play it. I mean, I put in tons of hours in it myself. I famously on my Twitter keep nailing people who try to come at me for it. I post the stats, and I'm still waiting for someone to post their stats back. That they love to cheer and hooray for this game and how great it is, but I actually play it. So yeah, anybody in the chat, y'all can come get smoked. Crossplay is enabled. I got you. But yeah, I mean, it's just a really great game. It's a lot of fun to just jump in. I mean, I jumped on just the other day with my brother. and a couple of people in Discord, and we just drove around and just randomly raced everywhere. And we just got into it at like the drag strip with like 8 other people. Like it's, I mean, it's just a good time. So the game's a lot of fun. Hopefully they nail the performance down. But I agree, they should have definitely had like an uncapped mode or something like that, especially on the PS5 Pro with the much better VRR and stuff like that. I could see that. So I don't know why they didn't. But I played 165 FPS, so that's not my problem. So yeah, but all in all, man, I'm just glad more people get to play.
What did you say you play on 100 what?
165 FPS.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, and I definitely want to like foot stomp that, right? It is a great game. It is a fun game. I have over 100 hours in the game, right? I mean, up until this recent Forza Motorsport came out, I think I mentioned this before, like I always buy like the $100 VIP version, you know, with all the car packs and all this. I don't want to be nickel and dimed and bothered, right? I know that I'm going to love, you know, the Forza Motorsport games, the Forza Horizon games. So I just always go whole hog right off the bat. My only thing is the hardware snob. I'm like, you know, again, you know, the Xbox Series X and what it's supposed to be capable of performing. And then the way I see other racing games perform on the platform and in modern tech, you know, I just, you know, I like, look, and frames, like racing games are one of the areas, you know, we constantly get this stuff about, oh, you can't even see right above, blah, 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 blah. Like, no. When you get inside the velvet rope, right, and you understand, you start being able to tell. I used to only be able to tell when, like every once in a while, like I would have a 4K monitor, right, and I would, you know, do an operating system update or do a GPU update, and the monitor would come up and be at like 30 frames per second, right. And I wouldn't look at the settings. I could just tell, right, by the way the mouse was moving across the screen. Oh, this thing is not at, you know, what it's supposed to be. And I would go in and lo and behold, it'd be at 30 frames per second. At the tail end of last year, I started being able to tell when it wasn't at 60, right? So now if I'm not at 90 or 120 frames per second, I can tell the difference. So racing games, if you're not deep into racing games, frames per second actually make a difference. The car is smoother in the turn. Your control inputs make it more sensitive in the turn because your control input is not being interpolated across like the same number of frames. It's being interpolated across a fewer number of frames. So your control in a turn, particularly when you are using oversteer, makes the car more controllable. It makes the game more enjoyable. You are able to get visual feedback on your control inputs into the car right at a higher rate. So again, I get frustrated by Forza and Forza Horizon, especially now being really the flagship of that platform, and then not having that, right, when I can go play other racing games, you know, that have that capability. So I don't know, it's just disappointing. But like I said, it's a great game, right? So coming to PlayStation 5 is a huge get, I think, for PlayStation players. My only concern for how well it will do on PlayStation is you will get some PlayStation pony snobs turning up their nose at 60 frames per second in a racing game when the flagship racing game on PlayStation has a 4K 120 mode.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't care about Forza Horizon 5. That's all I got to say about that. No, I haven't played Horizon in years. Look, the Horizon series has been good. I mean, all jokes aside, I think it's been a great entry in the Forza series or the Forza game. So excuse me, but yeah, I'm not my cup of tea anymore. Excuse me. So all right, want to move on to another Xbox first party studio game. Fable was announced as being delayed. Head of Xbox Game Studios Craig Duncan announced this delay this week. The game is now going to release at some point in 2026. We don't have a specific. That's all they said. Just sometime 2026. So we don't know what quarter, what month, whatever time of the year the game is going to be released. But yeah, I just my quick 2 cents. I'm okay with the game being delayed, given the amount of releases that Xbox first party has this year, specifically releases into Game Pass, not just first party, but some other third party games. I forget the turn-based RPG Innate that's coming out, I think, in April.
Expedition 33.
Thank you, sir. That looks really good. That looks intriguing. Like I'm actually like, and it's going to be on Game Pass. So, yeah, I heard the news. I'm like, oh, shrug my shoulder. Okay, you know what? That's fine. I just given the amount of games that are coming to Game Pass this year, I'm okay with this announcement. So, plus let the game cook a little bit more, as they say. What are your thoughts, Nate?
I mean, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I did like the little snippets we got during that update when they did announce that it was going to be delayed. So they did show a little bit more gameplay wise, kind of like in the background while they were talking here and there. The game looked really good. I mean, I'm excited for it. More specifically, because Priscilla is such a WRPG fan. Like, I'm really excited for her to get her first foray into it. But like you said, there's a ton of other games coming, so it's like I'm not pressed, to play it immediately. And if they need the time, they need the time. Like you said, Expedition 33 is coming, which I actually pre-ordered for PS5 Steelbook Edition. Like, I'm not playing around. That I'm supporting that 100%. But yeah, that again, that's another RPG in general, coming from that French team that is going to be Priscilla, again, her first JRPG like experience. And I say like because obviously it's a French team, so it's more like a FRPG, but you get the point. But yeah, there's like I said, there's so much other stuff coming out, like people can hardly keep up. Adam's Fall or whatever is coming, and like you said, the slate specifically from Xbox's team, or at least their lineup on Game Pass, is crazy right now. I mean, I pushed my Game Pass out to like November, because I got it on sale, and they've got enough coming for that. Priscilla did the same, and she's super picky. So yeah, I think they've got enough on the pipeline that's looking really good that they don't really have to sweat it. I hope, my hope is that it's being delayed so that it becomes a much better game. Now, I'll never know that. I'm not in the development room, but that's my hope. And then most likely, obviously, the other thing that a lot of people are hoping that it wasn't delayed for, that quote unquote, some insider stated, is that it may be being delayed to come out day one for PS5. So that hurt a lot of people's feelings, but they'll be okay.
Yeah. What about you, Logic? What are your thoughts on the delay?
I don't really care. I'm just
with Fable not on your
Fable's
your...
not one of my franchises. So I mean, great. I mean, fine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Again, like I said, I mean, for me, it just, I think and it's got to be a segue to the next topic. I just think the releases that are coming to Game Pass are been pretty consistent this year, games that I would be interested in. So, I think just delaying Fable just gives me an opportunity to get through some of these other games that I may not have gotten to because of Fable. So let me grab the super chat here by Warwana at the $2 Australia. It says, let's celebrate Monster Hunter Wilds by hitting the like button. Yes, thank you for that super chat. But yeah, I do want to go to the Game Pass Xbox releases this year, 2025. I think, and really, I keep thinking of the new Doom game and the fact that you can get in a freaking mech. And I think, can't you ride a dragon too? Isn't it? Or little, yeah, I think there's a dragon that you can now.
It looks like a dragon, yeah.
Like it just gave me like Panzer Dragoon Orta vibes, which if anyone played that on the original Xbox was a great game. Panzer Dragoon, a cult. I guess could you say that's a cult like, or a franchise that has a cult following amongst the Sega followers or Sega fans. But yeah, like Remote Turf says, after I finished June 2016, I was starting BG3. I mean, script for Baldur's Gate. Yeah, you're gonna be have your hands busy for quite some time there, Ramon, with Baldur's Gate 3. But anyhow, I just think that this year 2025 has been a pretty solid year in terms of releases. And I look at Microsoft's first party releases in terms of releases in the Game Pass, right? Releases of games that are going to keep me engaged or subscribe to the Game Pass subscription service. That's just me. So I think, like you mentioned, Expedition 33, Doom. What else is coming out? South of Midnight. I know I'm missing some other games in 8. I think there's a couple other ones. I'm just
Yeah, I mean,
those are the three.
there's quite a few. I mean, those
Avowed
are the
just
big
came
ones.
out.
Avowed just came out.
Avowed just
Uh,
came out.
then they
Um,
surprisingly actually got, and this isn't like a big one. This is more of like an indie title, but the original Sleeper Citizen was like a really good hit for a lot of people who did play it. And I realized Sleeper Citizen 2 released directly into Game Pass, which I didn't even know was coming. So yeah, I mean, they've been getting just hit after hit released in the Game Pass. So yeah, it's been a good time. Stalker 2, of course, came out not too long ago as well. So yeah, they've been hitting on all cylinders.
yeah, no, I don't disagree. And so I think again, this is kind of my, after all the acquisitions, my thought process was, okay, they've acquired all the studios now, and now they need to. Now I want to see what their release cadence is going to be like. Because remember, Matt Booty promised what was it, a AAA game every quarter or something? I forget what it was in a Game
Well,
Pass.
yeah, that was originally, that was 2021 ish. I want to say
Okay.
maybe even as late as 2022. That was out of like a statements that were released off of like a business summit or whatever that the Xbox leadership had like in that summer. May have been 2021. I want to say in 2023 that was revised to. This is in the wake, right? This is during the Redfall Mea Culpa tour, right? In the follow on to their Summer Games Fest thing. It was revised to 10 titles per year with no qualification around whether they were AAA, AA, right? High quality, low quality, whatever. It was just 10 games per year. And I mean, as he rattled off some games, like very incremental, like small things were considered a release. So what was the Tower something game that
Towerborn.
yes,
Towerborn.
so like he counted Towerborn, right? It's a first party game because they're publishing it. It is very small in scope and scale, and I think as that year went on, eventually it also became that game wasn't actually releasing, but it was going into like early access on Steam, and then was eventually coming to Xbox, right? So they're very like in his quantification of that, he was very cavalier in what counted and constituted like a release for them. So right now it's 10 new releases going into the service every each 10 first 10 I want to say I think it was first party, but 10 new releases going into the service every year. And again, they're very loosey goosey about what counts, right, in that number.
Gotcha. Okay. But yeah, like I'm saying, I mean,
I
yeah,
was
go
going
ahead,
to say
Nate.
to your point earlier, because you were asking what else you were missing. 33 Immortals is about to hit as well. That was one that they had on stage. I said earlier, Adam Fall, South of Midnight, obviously Doom, like you mentioned, Expedition 33, Wu Chang, Fallen Feathers was one that they promoted pretty heavily on their show. Obviously, The Outer Worlds 2, which is still crazy to think that they're going to release 2 games this year. Like I'll be surprised if that really happens, but Obsidian's been pretty on point. But yeah, and then they also just recently released Mixtape, I believe, as well, was released in there. And then later this year, Replaced will still be coming. I got delayed, but it'll still be coming as well. If anyone hasn't seen that, it's like an indie. I forgot the original. Last Light was the name of the original version of Replaced, and then it was renamed Replaced. And then, of course, like you guys said, Towerborn, and eventually Gears E-Day, so on and so forth. But yeah, there's a lot coming.
Well, I mean that's kind of like when I heard the Fable delay, I'm like, oh, there's so much, like, holy shit, there's so much stuff coming into Game Pass, like all the games you just mentioned, and at least for me, just outside the games you mentioned, like for me personally, South of Midnight, Clear Obscure, Expedition 33, Do the Dark Ages, and then you get into Ninja Gaiden 4, Outer Worlds 2. Hats off to Obsidian, by the way. Wu Chang, Fallen Feathers, which I know you mentioned. I mean, those are the games that I'm looking forward to. And there's other games that, by the way, there's other games coming to Game Pass. But those are at least the ones that I'm looking forward to. So I think they've hit at least this year has been a good cadence for Game Pass releases. Which brings me to a conversation that Logic and I had this week. About PlayStation. Yeah,
So,
go ahead, Logic. Yeah.
I do just want to walk you back. So
Mm.
you're free to have your opinion. I think many of our opinions are going to clash tonight, and I'm not going to be polite about it. But that will be a good release cadence when it happens, and those things stick the landing at a minimum level, at a minimum required level, and expectation of quality. Right. So I'm not going to.
Mm.
Right, because when Booty rattled off those 10 games, he was counting Redfall.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
first
I don't
of all,
disagree.
they actually have to execute and get those games out, and they need to not be like they can't be disasters.
Well,
Yeah, I agree.
I don't disagree, Logic. I will say this. We don't know Expedition 33, we don't know how that's going to play out. I'm intrigued, but I do have hopes based on pedigree. Doom Dark Ages will probably be good. Ninja Gaiden 4, I'm gonna love. Because that's Team Ninja and Platinum. Outer Worlds 2. I mean, that's Obsidian. Again, we don't know anything about the other games I mentioned and some of the other ones that Nate mentioned. So I don't disagree with you that they do need to stick the landing. They need to be of quality because you're right. I mean, one of the games Booty talked about was Redfall, and clearly that didn't stick the landing.
Yeah, and I mean, and look, I'm just going to say it because I firmly believe it's the truth. Like there are some games that get pushed out, right? That hey, we got to feed the subscription service, so it has to go. And a lot, but granted, a lot of those games that you rattled off, that both of you rattled off, like I have complete confidence. I have complete confidence in Clara Obscura, right? I don't really question that. Quite honestly, I have complete confidence in the Outer Worlds too, because Obsidian's one of my top 5 favorite studios, and in them I trust. So. I just, as for the rest of them, we'll just see how things get handled,
Yeah. But that kind of goes to kind of segues into conversation that we had this week, Logic, about PlayStation's output. And I know that sometimes I know other people brought it up on social media, often console warring. But at least from my perspective, when I buy a PlayStation, I'm usually buying for first party. And I've gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, like I get Ghost of Yotei, I know that's coming out. Wolverine, I know it's coming out. I know Naughty Dog's new game, I know it's coming out. But I at least for me, I kind of feel like, like their releases have been look, I thought they came out like firing out the gate, the PlayStation 5 with exclusives. And I just feel I'm building Ramon Pass. That's actually pretty funny, Ramon. But no, I kind of feel like, this is I'm wondering I'm not concerned, but I'm wondering if PlayStation is kind of just, hey, you know what? Like we're kind of just we're selling consoles. We're selling a lot of consoles, regardless of our first party releases. And I don't know. Maybe there's not that that sense of urgency to release more first party stuff. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, I know you guys talked about it already. So, I mean, for me, I get where you're coming from. Again, like I said, I always have these conversations with Priscilla. Obviously, we live together, but she's the same way. She's like, I bought a PlayStation for those first party exclusives. The Last of Us is one of her favorite games. She's looking at Naughty Dog like, y'all spent all that time teasing me about factions. I feel some type of way, and rightfully so, right? There are, like you said, a lot of things on the cusp, a lot of things like we finally know people are working on, but like honestly, we really haven't even seen Wolverine. So like I mean, we trust in Insomniac, right? They're great, but we need to see it. Like in order to, I mean, it's a visual medium, gaming at the end of the day. So we want to see these games. We want to see PlayStation, put on that big show and really show us what's coming and nail down some of these release dates. So you said, outside of like Ghost of Yote and some of the other stuff, you're like, what is really coming, right? Now, I think when the releases line up, I still think you're going to be fine, mainly because I also know you like Souls games. So, with the release of how tough was it Phantom Blade Zero looks, I think you're going to end up really liking that. And I think between that and Lost Soul Aside, Where the Wind Meets, and some of the other stuff they're working with via the China Hero Project, I think is a big thing that's filling in some of those first party gaps. Again, not an excuse because they shouldn't, but I know they're working in partnership with a lot of those places really closely. And a lot of those games are looking really good. So, like, they're not games that we're not going to play, right? Just because they're not first party. Like, they're building up quality in a relationship with China, which I'd personally rather them do because I played Black Myth Wukong and it was epic. So, if China's got more of that to give, I'll take it. So I think it's just finding that new balance within PlayStation, and then obviously they had that big live service push that they got to reel back from. Ben had to cancel their game, so it's like it's definitely hampered their release schedule, right? I still think they're going to put out quite a few things. Obviously, the only place to play the upcoming Death Stranding 2 is going to be on the PS5 as well. So there's a lot of things PlayStation has locked down that I feel like they're trying to balance that cadence of releases, because you also still don't want all your partner stuff on top of your games, on top of everything releasing all at once. So hopefully they're watching that pretty closely while also making sure they fulfill releasing enough of that first party grade A content that they're known for. So but I get it because I get on PlayStation's neck all the time, like, where is this, where is that, like, what is this team doing, what is that team doing? But yeah, I definitely think it's time for them to at least show up and start to put some dates on a lot of these games. So yeah, definitely hold them to the fire.
Well, the other thing too is, I think at least with Xbox, one thing I've enjoyed more recently with them is that they've been having these developer directs. They've been talking about some of the games that are in the pipeline that are coming down, or they're getting close to release. Haven't seen so much of that on the PlayStation side, first party at least. So that's kind of been a, kind of where I've been like, where. God, I hate when people say, "Where's the roadmap?" But I'm kind of like, "Where's the roadmap now?" Or what's coming down the pipeline.
I don't blame you, and that's why, like I said when it supposedly leaked that Jeff Grubb had said that PlayStation was debating whether or not they should have a showcase or a state of play this summer. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you haven't had a showcase in like 2 years. You need to have a showcase. Like, you need to like this is." I really don't think this is the difference with PlayStation's current setup right now with whoever's in charge and their cadence. Like, they're put their foot on the gas mode right now is where they should be. Like, they need that E3 level showcase.
But that's why I wonder, Nate, if they're kind of like, hey, like, our consoles are selling well, and how much foot in the gas do we need to put? Do we need to have? If we're still moving hardware units, yeah.
And that's the thing that sucks, right? Because investors and stuff like that look at things who don't game, look at like, well, we're good, like, don't even worry about it. You know what I mean? So it sucks when you have people who don't really have their finger on the pulse, and their ear to the ground and really see what everybody's really saying. Because to me, PlayStation, the reason I get you, like, I feel like internally they seem like that, and that's why I said I think they need the showcase more than ever. And I feel like you said, there's a battle between those people versus the people who feel like us, like they should put on that showcase, right? That's why they're debating it internally. I'm like, I don't think there should be a debate. Play old school PlayStation, E3 PlayStation, there'd be no debate. They're putting their foot on the gas, they're talking smack. Kevin Butler's on stage giving you the business, like, and then they're hitting you with trailer after trailer after trailer, and they soar past 100 million sales. That's where they should be right now. Like, you shouldn't have to even depend. Like, GTA 6 coming out is just should be icing on the cake, like, to everything that you're offering. So I think PlayStation's still got it in the tank, but yeah, man, it's time for them to definitely show up. But yeah, they could be in danger of, kind of chilling a little too much. So I think we'll see this summer whether or not that's the case.
All right. What about you, Logic? What are your thoughts?
It's complicated. And like my thoughts on your various points of light, right? And some of these are going to be from a development perspective. Some of these are going to be from a business and financial perspective. And some of them are going to be just from a gamer's perspective. I think the first thing I'll say, and maybe the community perspective, is so I'm going to take some of the comments in the chat as exemplary of perspectives of the gaming community, right? So I am not at this point, right, calling out anybody in the chat directly yet. What I will say is some of the perspectives, and yes, we often push back on the keep that same energy, right? However, I would classify a lot of what we talk about on this show as a matter of performance assessment of the competitors on the market, right? So I don't really go in a lot for the, a vendor has one down check mark, right? And so that that's a big deal. Like a lot of the Xbox podcasts say this one bad thing happened at PlayStation, so therefore, like it's indicative of like a extinction level event happening, right? And I think that hyperbole, that that tabloid kind of approach to journalism is not really valuable. But we do have a lengthy, enduring conversation about how is Xbox doing, right? Overall, like what is their grade? How is PlayStation doing overall? What is their grade? And I think we're in a zone kind of where you talk, like you mentioned, BRAP, where it's getting to a point where it's no longer just a matter of they're the market leader. So that like I will always go with the data. The data says that they're the market leader. But I think we're getting to a point where there are enough chinks in the armor to no longer say they're the market leader, so therefore everything that they do is okay and they get a pass on everything. So from a perspective of talking about the performance, I'm going to take that off the table. Any notion of excusism that they're PlayStation, so they don't have to do this and they don't have to do that, that's getting tossed at this point. What is proven in an objective fact when you look at Xbox and when you look at PlayStation is we now see, after 4 years going into the 5th year in this console generation, is that they have both experienced bathtubs in their production pipeline. Xbox's was on the forefront of this generation, and quite honestly, I still say, to me, that bathtub was inexcusable, and I don't get it. And not only is it inexcusable, but it's also inexplainable, right? So that's a double gig. PlayStation's bathtub is occurring now in the midpoint of this generation. It is explicable, right? There's causality, and we understand why it happened, right? Because Naughty Dog spent a ton of time on Factions, and then Factions wasn't put out because some studios were tasked to go do live service stuff, and those live service things got canceled. So I get it. Some other studios had a lot of things in incubation, right? Sony Santa Monica, time spent on God of War Ragnarok, the thing that is the other round in the chamber, right? What Cory Barlog is working on, that thing takes time, right? To get out of conceptualization and ideation into actual production pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
So there's those things can be explained. However, kind of like you mentioned, Nate, why that is okay. The reason why it's been okay up to this point is because of brand equity. There's loyalty to the PlayStation brand based on what they've done and based on the pedigree of their studios that makes that okay. But when we compare that, right, but that wouldn't be the same path that we would give to Xbox, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't at the front of this generation. So I'm not giving them an excuse and a pass for that in the midpoint of this generation, right?
Yeah. I just want to, I'm sorry, Logic, I want to address something in the chat. We're not saying they haven't announced anything. I see people saying, oh, well, they haven't announced enough. That isn't so much what they've announced. It's again, you may have, I don't know if you guys were paying attention, but we were talking about the releases, right, of Xbox into Game Pass, Xbox first party Game Pass, and the games that are coming now that are releasing, that we know are releasing now, have dates. And what I'm saying is I'm not seeing as many on the PlayStation side. And again, I'm wondering, and for me, again, I buy PlayStation for first-party PlayStation exclusives. Yes, I know about Ghost of Yotei. I know about Wolverine. I know those games are coming. I know that Naughty Dog's game is coming. I don't think Naughty Dog's game has a release date yet, right? Not even or a release year. I think it's speculated to be 2020
yet.
It's speculated maybe 2026. That's what we're discussing here. You know, and again, I think, like you mentioned, Nate, and Priscilla, we buy PlayStations for the first party stuff. Again, I'm not saying that they don't have any exclusive games coming. They do from partners, you know, second party partners or third party partners, but I'm talking about the first party stuff. And then what we see in terms of development showcases or the shows, like you mentioned that Grub had reported that they were internally, Sony was debating about doing a state of play versus showcase. Like, it's like, when's the next showcase going to be? Like, I'm wondering about those things now. Like I think as somebody who bought a PlayStation 5 for a consumer, I think it's fair to ask, where's the next showcase? I'd like to see a showcase.
And that's my point, Brad, right? The point is, and again, this is a discussion of how things have gone overall throughout this generation. And even if you want to roll it back a little bit into last generation, right? The point is that this dialogue and how people are saying that they feel is that there's uncertainty. And that has not been what people have been saying. We're saying at the beginning of this generation around the PlayStation brand. People at the beginning of this generation were riding high on the hog off of the performance of PlayStation 4, right? Throughout the entirety of last generation, right? Which inspired a high deal of confidence. Again, brand equity, brand loyalty. But now you're starting to see that energy trail off, right? Because there's uncertainty in what is in the profile. And some of you guys in the chat and some people who are out in the gaming community are continuing on that trend of, I'm not worried, right? They've delivered this, they've delivered that. But what we're saying is we're starting to see crevices in that armor, and you're starting to hear that dialogue, right? And what does that mean? What does that impact on the market? Part of that impact on the market is there's a wait and see, right? Absolutely. But part of the question is okay, what does that do about the sales rate of the PlayStation 5? But more importantly, as we're heading into this part in the generation, what does that do about the walk-in right to the PlayStation 6 generation? One thing I will compliment Xbox on is Xbox, having known that they lost the last generation and knew that early, started doing things at the tail end of last generation that propped them up for hanging, granted by one finger off the cliff, right? But prop them up for their entry into this generation. They did backwards. They amped up the backwards compatibility thing and marketed that heavily. They did Game Pass. They did studio acquisitions. They did PC Game Pass. They did day and date. All of those things created this drumbeat of a Rolling Thunder campaign, which is an Xbox thing that they've been doing since the 360 generation. And quite frankly, they're actually pretty good at when they get their crap together. They started signaling all those things at the tail end of the generation as they knew that they were running behind. That is part of the momentum that helped them hold on and remain in third place in the market, right? Remember, if this was a Sega who was very much in the same tactical and strategic position that Xbox has been in, Sega didn't make it, right? Sega was presented with very similar challenges, and they had to give up the goose, right, and get out of the hardware industry. Xbox has managed to hang on. In my opinion, one of the things PlayStation has to do is they have got to reinvigorate that brand loyalty, that brand equity going into the tail end of this generation. They've got to ramp things, right, to re-inspire some of their customers going into the next generation, particularly if the PlayStation 6 is going to come in at a higher price, which I firmly believe that it will. And part of that reinvigoration is getting releases out of their marquee studios. I think we can have a discussion about annualization of releases. That I'm okay with. But what is a stated objective of PlayStation is numbers of first-party marquee studio releases within a generation. At the beginning of the generation, one of the things that Ryan said was he wanted greater productivity out of his marquee studios, right? More titles per generation to justify the investment costs in the console itself, right? Those marquee titles are the titles that they need to sell and generate the revenue and that they are most concerned about in profitability. And remember that one of the things that was stated was the marquee studios were not going to get the opportunity to not be due course, right? Which means Guerrilla isn't going to be allowed to go off and do a Pentiment or a Grounded, right? or some small little indie thing that maybe has a heartfelt thing, like what is the Astrobot studio again? I'm sorry.
You talking about Timo Sobo?
Yeah, Team Asobo gets to do that, but you also see there's been a lot of squelching of that, right? The was it Media Molecule that does Nights, right? That got squashed. A lot of studios that did that type of content, they've gotten squashed. There's not a lot of room or tolerance or appetite for that in the PlayStation investment portfolio. The PlayStation investment portfolio wants the big Michael Bay summer blockbuster type of things out of studios, and not too many studios have actually produced those this generation, right? Insomniac has. Was Returnal this generation release? Was it a PlayStation 5 release?
I'm sorry, which one is that again, Hamp?
Returnal?
Oh, that was a PlayStation 5 release. Yep.
Yeah, so in-house Mark has.
Yep.
But like the productivity of those marquee studios in comparison to the PlayStation 4 generation is not where it is. That is an objective, quantifiable fact. I'm not going to have an argument about that. Period. So in the same way that we quantify the discussion of Xbox, we're going to quantify this and make objective the conversation about PlayStation. Right? It is unquestionable, and it is a mathematical truth that their productivity this generation has not been what it was last generation.
I agree.
So that's a bathtub. Again, that is an objective, quantifiable fact. I'm not going to have an argument about that. Now, if you want to talk about how you feel about that, then that's fine. You can argue with me about that all day. You know the regard I have for your personal feelings and emotions. So, I mean, that's just where we are, right? And so from my perspective, again, as we talk on the show about the performance of these console vendors, these publishers, the performance, right, maintenance of PlayStation is starting to not be on as firm a ground as it has been going into this generation. And so that conversation on this show is going to start becoming variable, right, as we go into the remainder of this generation and we kind of assess and see, you know, where they head from here.
Absolutely. No, I agree with everything you said. I mean, I definitely want to hold them accountable going forward. Like I said, I always do. Like I said, I get a lot of people are cool, you know what I'm saying? And they're just still riding the wave. But I think some of us are just more hyper, I guess, hyper aware of what's going on sometimes. I've always been that type of person where it's like the calm before the storm. I always seem to notice it before. Oh, it's gonna rain, you know, like 5 hours before anyone else realizes it. And it's kind of the same thing here. Like I just don't want it to get to that point. Is I think what like some people are missing, and that's basically what you're saying, right? You're like, hey, like it's cool that they did all this stuff, but like we need them to crank it back up. Like you don't get to crank it down just because you did great at the end of the generation. You started off great. Don't falter now just because your competition dropped out, and they're gonna give you the easy dub. It's like, again, Priscilla's a good example because when she runs races, right, like the ultras, like just because you don't stop running your pace just because somebody 3 miles back fell out of the race and they can't run no more. Like, no, you still have time to make, you still have to finish the race, and you still have a cadence to keep. So I think that's really a big thing, and that's just what I just don't want them to fall on that. And I think, like you said, it's caution time for me as well. So it's like, yeah, I'm just like, I'm paying attention to what's happening. Like this is a crucial moment. And like to what you were saying earlier, BRAP, right? Like you said, I hope their internal idea is not to relax, because this is the time when you make the difference between I want to sell 150 million or I want to sell, hey, we can scooch by 100 million and call it a day. Like, because GTA 6 is coming out. Like they could really lay it on. Like, I mean, we have some of the events that they've had at E3 are so legendary that people talk about them years after. Like, remember when PlayStation came out on stage and was just like, here are the games, and just hit you, and that people gasped when they showed Horizon Zero Dawn and people realized it was gameplay. Like, they didn't realize people, like, that is what PlayStation is known for. And then once you've seen that, you didn't have to question the delivery because they always landed that, you know? So I think they need that again. They need to let people in again, let people gasp at what they're capable of and bring that stuff out. Like, I think we're at that critical point.
Well, and that's the thing. Look, again, you can feel that it's unfair. I don't really care how you feel, but the fact of the matter is that when you're the champ, you have different expectations to meet, right?
Yep.
That is your brand rep, right? So deal with it. So now I've been nice. Now I am going to pick on some particular things in the chat that I strongly object to. Chad Stud, the PS4 didn't have to deal with COVID and lock. When we talked about Xbox, I went on for years about people who use that COVID-19 as an excuse. And when Phil Spencer did his mea culpa tour for Redfall, what did he say? I told people this 6 months beforehand. I said, there's no excuse for Xbox for COVID. What did Phil Spencer say when he did his mea culpa tour for Redfall? He said the exact same thing. So many times this generation, I have said 6 months before that guy said a thing, what was applicable, and he corroborated it like months later. COVID-19 is not an excuse, right? These teams, like, great, like, we live in a high-tech industry. Microsoft, as far as I'm concerned, was even less, like, I have zero tolerance and patience for any notion of a discussion of they missed a drum beat because they weren't ready for people to go remote, when they literally make Microsoft Teams and purchase GitHub. They literally are the purveyor vendors of tools that software developers use for the express purposes of working asymmetrically and asynchronously. No excuse for that. And I don't. COVID-19 happened, and quite frankly, while COVID was going on, while the pandemic was in place, PlayStation Studio productivity actually maintained its drumbeat, while Xbox was stumbling and falling. I don't have patience or tolerance for the notion that COVID was an excuse when PlayStation maintained their productivity for that in the first years of the PlayStation 5, and now they're having a problem. The pandemic was 2 years ago, dude. Like, that's not where we are right now. And Wara, I'm not as animated, right? But I'll say your statement that I just didn't need Elder Scrolls 6 announced in 2019, just to still have no idea where it is at 2025. I understand your sentiment, but I will say, as a matter of the rubric that we've established on this show, we should be able to have a conversation about Xbox's performance to the 92nd percentile, agnostic to what PlayStation is doing. And the same token, what PlayStation does should be agnostic to what I get that Xbox has made stumbles. This is primarily a discussion about PlayStation. And my assessment is PlayStation, if they're the A+ on the market, isn't looking like an A+ right now, right? They have chinks in their armor that takes them down a notch from being S tier. They're causing uncertainty amongst their consumer base. And on a show where we discuss the performance of the vendors, that performance now looks wobbly. The discussion of roadmaps, right? Again, I said the same thing about Xbox 2 years ago. The only reason I was insistent about Xbox showing a roadmap was because the level of confidence in the brand and the uncertainty had become so bad. So does PlayStation need a roadmap? I don't know that they need a roadmap that is 2 years out, right? But the notion of expectations on the horizon has so many gaps in it that when there's a concurrent reduction in confidence that like the stuff is coming. Like, again, if I look back over the last 2 years and somebody were to tell me I'm not worried about it, the games will be there, the games are coming, that hasn't been what's happened. Right? Because people have been doing stuff. People have been working. It's absolutely not a question that, like, people are like the quadruple A studio out at the initiative, right? And they're eating a bag of Cheetos while Eidos is doing all the work, right? That's not where we are, right? But decisions have been made impacting the production pipeline, which has made the production pipeline not as prolific as it was last generation. That's the quantifiable point.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Logic. Yeah, that's what we do on the show. To your point, we are going to have conversations about the platform owners and our thoughts often on how we think they're performing, and we also talk about how they're actually performing in the market based on sales numbers and things like that. So, sorry, I'm just reading some of the stuff in the chat here.
Yeah, I was trying to find the original announcement date because, like, don't get me wrong. Like, while I'm excited for, like, shout out to Xbox for finally getting their, their cadence together, right? But I'm like, Perfect Dark was, from what I remember, was announced in like 2017. Like, so it's
Yeah, I
like,
mean, don't get it twisted. Like, look,
yeah,
you guys heard me push back on BRAP, right? In any notion that the Xbox roadmap has been repaired, that is not
yeah,
where we are. Those games haven't come out yet. What they have made is
absolutely.
they have made a commitment. But the reason I say that doesn't count as a score is because they've made commitments. Sarah Bond sat on stage in June of 2023 with the 12-month plan, right? Or June. I keep getting those dates messed up. June of 2022, right? With the 12-month plan. Redfall comes out. Phil Spencer comes to the stage after once again, I'd been preaching for months that they'd failed at meeting the 12-month plan and says, yeah, we didn't meet the 12-month plan.
Yeah.
Right. So just like the studios, like the analog is all these studios that I've said have been in question about whether or not they've lost their moxie, right? The Blizzards, the BioWares, the Bethesdas, some of them have restored themselves, some of them haven't. Xbox is in the same place, right? They've committed to roadmaps before, they've failed to meet them. So they've got another roadmap on the table. When that becomes a deliverable, then we'll have a discussion about whether or not they've, repaired their, sins of the past.
Agreed.
I think people get worked up by me saying, "Hey, I'm just wondering where the roadmap is."
Well, no, but like, some people just don't want to get into the details, right? And
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
mean,
and I'm like, that's
Chad,
cool.
like Chad's like, "LOL, Xbox roadmap is horrific." I mean, look, I mean, like I think Logic just said. I mean, we've on this show talked about many of the issues of Xbox, but we're talking about today.
Yeah, the
And
holding PlayStation accountable is not us giving current Xbox a pass. Like, this is
yeah, like
about
that's not, yeah, like we're
about
talking
one
about.
and not the other.
I
Yeah.
guess what I don't understand is why can't we just have the conversation? We're just having a conversation about PlayStation, and like Chad, I don't know, Chad, if you're defending PlayStation, but if you are, I, I just find that
Yeah,
odd.
it's not it's
People need
not
to
it's
defend
not an
brand.
example. It's not PlayStation versus Xbox. It's PlayStation versus itself and what they're supposed to be doing. Like, we're just having this isn't a versus conversation. Everybody always tries to make it a versus, and I get that because every other show does that. They're like, oh, but these guys, and it's like, no, this is just, hey, this is what I expect from PlayStation. This is where they are, and this is what I expect from them going forward. And I want them to hit these metrics to maintain, like Logic was saying, that continued brand equity. Like, and I do see the chinks in the armor, like he stated, because I do see some of the really loyal, people with PlayStation kind of like, dang, man, like, where's that showcase? Or like,
Well,
man, are they gonna hit us with that release date on that? Or
well, and that's the thing. Like the showcase thing's really interesting because, and that's, and the Jeff Grubb article. Like I just when Jeff was talking about it,
Mhm.
that was really like, wow, wait a minute. Like we haven't had, because I hadn't really thought about it. Like we haven't had a showcase in years. It feels like it's
Yeah.
been a while. And, like
2023.
2002 years.
Just to be, yeah.
Yeah. So it's been 2
yeah.
years. I mean, 2 years is 2 years. And, again, I don't know. And it just me, I'm just, thinking out loud here. I'm just wondering, is it a byproduct of a couple things? Is it the having to pivot, shift away from the live service stuff, which you were focusing on a little bit too. But I know Shuei mentioned that they were still working on single player stuff. It was like, okay, you're still gonna do the single player stuff, but in addition to, we want you to do, the live service stuff. But I also wonder if it's a byproduct of them just, hey, you know what, we can spend more time, we can, leverage more of our second, third party relationships, and we're the quote unquote market leader now, and we don't have to be as aggressive in our first party strategy the way they did coming towards the tail end of the PlayStation 3 and in the PlayStation 4 generation, where they were, PlayStation 3, they were playing catch up.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm just saying. Like I understand the first part, Intergalactic, Ghost of Yote, Wolverine, fine. Marathon, fair games, no release dates. I haven't seen release dates on that. Ceros, I haven't seen any Ceros, we don't. I think that's coming out next year. Is that coming out next year? I think it comes out in 2026. But I'm talking about today too. Like I'm talking about today, and I'm talking about what what the other first party studios are working on as well.
Exactly.
You know, in comparison to what their previous output had been like.
So Chad, I'm fine. We could consider this like a little bit of a reset, but just help me out. You're saying comparing a PlayStation 4 gen midway compared to the PS5 gen midway isn't a good comparison. I'm sorry, that statement makes absolutely zero sense to me. So please, as much as you can, in a concise, succinct manner, maybe you can use bullets, right? Please explain to me why making a comparison between the two consoles, generation over, because when it's positive, we make that comparison all the time.
Yeah.
We talk about, oh, they're ahead in terms of sales, right? So again, I don't find it acceptable for us to be able to compare the generations when it's a positive spin on PlayStation, but when it's a negative spin, then suddenly like it's a bad analog. Like I need to understand what the rationale is for not being allowed to make that comparison.
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say the other thing too, like Seru 21 saying there's been a lapse of announcements, but it's not like we're not getting nothing. You mean anything? Look, I'm not saying we're not getting anything. My only point is this, and I said this about the Xbox. When I spend $500 on a console, I have an expectation. BRAP has an expectation. Perhaps your expectations are different than mine. That's fair. My expectation is, at least with PlayStation, that I'm going to get a lot of first-party games, good first-party games. You know, that I'm going to get a lot of announcements of first-party games, that I'm going to be shown first-party games. What I'm saying is that cadence has changed a bit this generation compared to the PS4, and it's fair to compare those generations, you know. And now we have, and the reason why I segue from the Xbox is one thing and we were very critical about Xbox early in this generation is they have seemed to hit this cadence now, and at least for me, my benchmark for them is games that are going into Game Pass, because I do subscribe to Game Pass, and I'm always like, are they going to keep my subscription? They're going to keep getting money from me based on their releases that they have, that they're feeding into that to that subscription service. But besides Xbox, what I'm saying is now it just seems a bit different to me, you know, that we haven't been getting those roadmaps per se, or more of those announcements. Don't get me wrong, Casaros, great announcement, you know. Ghost of Yote, great announcement. The new Naughty Dog game, great, you know, but we don't have release dates on some of those games, you know. We don't know what else. We don't know what else they're cooking in the pipeline, and this is year 5 into the console generation. This console gen is going to probably run 2 more years. So
Chad mentions,
go ahead,
Chad says, because the PS4 didn't have to go through what the PS5 has. You may not think COVID a valid reason, but it is. The chip shortage made it hard to get consoles in the hands therefore Sony had to do more. No, still, Chad, that doesn't track with me. So look, you and I are just going to disagree. COVID's not a valid reason. Not a valid reason. I work in software development. The entirety of the tech industry, the entirety of the gaming industry, we all had to figure it out. We all had to figure out how to maintain release cadences. We all had to recover, right? Not a valid reason. Phil Spencer has admitted it's not, for him in his studios, it's not a valid reason. Admitted that they should have been held accountable for not making releases. I'm going to hold PlayStation to that same bar. Not a valid reason. And if it's a reason for how the chip shortage impacting hardware makes zero difference to software development. Right? Maybe there's another convergence that you're looking. My point is this generation, what has come out of Ben's studio, who gave you Days Gone last generation. Again, Ben's studio typically a support studio, and I'm just going alphabetically. Typically a support studio, so you may not have a huge expectation for games from them. But my point is, last generation you got Days Gone. This generation, I don't think you've gotten anything. Bluepoint was acquired, right? What has Bluepoint provided this generation? They were working on a live service game, which, if I'm not mistaken, has gotten canceled. So their net output for this generation is 0 to this date. What has Guerrilla Games given you? They participated in helping out get out Horizon, whatever is the VR game, right? But I don't think you've gotten anything out of Guerrilla. You're getting something out of Housemarque next year.
You got the new you got for Horizon Forbidden West, but yeah.
Was that the beginning of the generation?
No, that wasn't exactly the beginning. That was that 2023, Nate?
Yeah, 2023. Yeah, 2023.
Okay, so you got one there for Guerrilla.
And Demon Souls was done by Bluepoint, by the way. The Demon Souls remake was done by Bluepoint, and that was the start of the generation 5 years ago.
So one of your favorite statements, BRAP, did that move the needle?
For PlayStation?
Yes.
No, I mean it probably didn't. That game, to me, that game was more of a love letter to the hardcore and to, you know, like to me that's a kind of game you release at launch, you know, because who are the early adapters?
Right.
The hardcore gamers. Yeah.
Insomniac games to me is the Obsidian, right, of PlayStation, right? They've been the consistent people. Like you've gotten a Ratchet and Clank, you've gotten a Spider-Man, right? You've gotten remakes, remasters, bumps, right? Great output. Media Molecule was working on Dreams, got strangled. Have you got anything from Naughty Dog this generation? You've gotten remakes, right? Theoretically, hopefully we're getting Intergalactic next week. Polyphony, we've gotten our, you know, our classic one iteration of Gran Turismo this generation. I don't suspect that we're getting anything else from Polyphony. You know, the telltale heart with Polyphony is always what it has always been. I'm convinced that they have some executive son kidnapped and locked in the basement because they just do whatever the flip it is that they want to do every generation. They just don't give a shit.
Sure.
Right. You know, San Diego, you know, good on San Diego. They keep putting out MLB The Show every year consistently. They've even delivered it to other consoles, other platforms. So that's awesome. Sony Santa Monica. Yeah, go ahead.
Just want to say something real quick to Chad Stud. He says Xbox only has these new games because they spent Daddy Satcha's money. So now I know where you're coming from, Chad.
Yeah, and who cares?
I was about to say that. Who cares? Like, so what? They own them. Who cares? They're regardless of how they were acquired or why they were acquired. They're still a first party studio. Like you saying that, Chad, doesn't somehow diminish the fact that they are a first party studio in any way. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lyle.
And we say the same thing when it's the opposite, right? When Xbox defenders come in here and they say, oh, but, oh, but COVID, oh, but, you know, studios were being acquired and they had to flush their production pipeline. Oh, but, you know, people internally were working to crush Xbox. I don't care. It's not my responsibility for internal Microsoft politics. That's not my, who cares? Right? Dog ate my homework. Right? You know, in the Yahoo in the chat saying Logic, you crashing out a bit. How am I crashing out by alphabetically going down a list of the studios and asking what have they produced this generation? When you make that comparison to what they produced in PlayStation 4, and it's different, right? It's more prolific output.
I mean,
the other thing I would say
that is a tangible difference, by the way.
Right.
That's something we can actually measure.
Right. And so another thing that I will say is that, like, again, why I feel like the notion of not being able to compare PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5 generation, this is the second generation that they're on the x86 architecture, right? So my expectation from, again, being formally educated and working in the realm of software engineering, I would expect your velocity to improve, right? To increase the second time you're on a generation that uses similar abstraction, right? And similar APIs. So again, you may not agree with it. I don't think I ever have come onto the show asking people to agree with me. I don't really care, right? What I'm telling you is that quantifiably the production output of the PlayStation studios is less this generation than it was last generation, and that is causing reason to ask questions. Period. Finito.
Yeah, and I think it's, as a consumer, it's fair to ask questions, especially when you spend $500 on a box. That was my, if you guys have been listening to the show, you probably heard me say that. I spent $500 on a Series X. Microsoft, show me the games that show off the power of the Series X that this thing eats monsters for breakfast. And I'm calling to question some of the things with the PlayStation 5 now, based on some of the things you just mentioned, Logic, like talk about the output of first-party studios last generation to this generation. It just seems a bit off. And the fact that, to me, they've been a bit quieter in talking about their first party output in comparison to last generation. I say I mean Sony. You know, like we haven't had a showcase in 2 years. Like, yeah, I'm not saying like the you know that Sony's in trouble. Clearly they're not. We know this based on their financials. What I'm questioning is the output and the lack of dialogue around stuff that they're working on, because we haven't seen a show. Again, I know they just revealed the new Housemarque game. That was great. But I'm thinking about like some of the bigger announcements, some of the kind of grandstanding, if you will, that we saw last generation. I just don't feel like we've seen that this generation. And the only thing I'm saying is, why is this happening? I'm wondering why this is happening now.
Well, and that's a catchphrase, right? That resonates, right? And that causes this conversation, right? The what's going on, right? The wait a second, right? And also, again, don't get it twisted. I have been on this show, right? And I have, you can go back and listen, and I have called Xbox, right? Xbox's management of its production pipeline an abject failure. Well below my expectation of what 3 senior level executives who get paid 6-figure salaries 3, 4, 5 times over, right? That whole email thread in 2022 of a CEO level officer saying, hey, we don't have anything in the production pipeline for the back half of this year. What's the plan? And turning to his 2 lieutenants who are also 6-figure salary executives, right? And them scrambling as if they don't know. I'm like, good Lord, like Matt Booty and Sarah Bond, that is literally the definition of your job, right? And for you to be answering the CEO with uncertainties and like I get my ass chewed if I don't know what's in a contract, right, on one of the projects in my portfolio, right, by memory. So the notion that people managing a production pipeline just have zero sense of, like, again, people are responding, right, in this chat as if we're putting PlayStation at the same level as Xbox. That's not what we're doing. I've just stated that. I've stated it several times before. What I'm stating here is that there's a question. Lots of these responses, we don't need a showcase. I'm not bothered. Again, great, awesome. I just want to point out, you're saying the same things that the Xbox guys have been saying the first half of this generation, right? I'm not worried. We don't need a showcase. They don't need to make me any promises. So that again, I don't care about that, but like, you may want to check yourself for how much what you're saying is like literally the same talking points that the Xbox fans in here that used to come to the show that no longer come to the show stated as well. So you guys aren't bothered. That's fine. I'm not speaking for you. I'm speaking for the people who are asking these questions.
Yeah. All right. Let me grab this super chat here from Street Shadow. With the $5 super chat, thank you, Street Shadow. Says, I'm a huge Sony fan, love my PS5, and PS5 can be successful, and we can still ask what some of the studios is doing or are doing. So yeah, exactly. I think it's, as a consumer, it's fair to ask questions.
Yeah, look,
we're being unreasonable here.
My last bit of slander for the night. Look, if you get sand in your drawers, right, and your balls get irritated because we're asking questions about PlayStation, you may just want to think about what your relationship with the brand is, right? Like that's a you problem.
You're probably too emotionally invested in the brand. Oh my God. The studios were working on gas games that got canceled. Not all the studios are working on gas games.
And so what?
Yeah. And
again,
yeah, exactly.
That's a place that was for Jim Ryan and Toki and the new guy and Herman. Like, that's for them to figure out, right? I'm not looking for excuses. I don't get to make excuses at work on a daily basis.
Yeah, so. I was just about to say that, Logic. Like, do you guys work in the real world? Because that shit right there, that would never fly. Well, we were working on this one thing, and you know what? Who cares? You didn't execute.
The appointment wasn't on my calendar.
Yeah.
I didn't see the message in Teams chat.
But I mean, like you said, at the end of the day, right? If y'all have different expectations, you're not arguing their expectations. You're explaining your expectations and the people who are aligning with your expectations for that brand, right? Like, I always tell people, I am on PlayStation's neck harder than anybody. Like, I hold them to the fire when they are successful, when they are, down, no matter what. I'm always on PlayStation because I never want them to get caught lacking, because that is the expectation of the brand that they have given me over the years and what they've produced, and that's what I expect out of them. If everybody, like I said, if everybody's okay, or some of these people are okay with exactly what's going on and they have zero concern is fine for you, but it's not for me. I'm a very cautionary person in what PlayStation, I know what PlayStation can do. I know what they should be doing and what my expectations are for them as, like you said, the market leader. They earn that spot, right? But when you earn a spot, like you said, when you're the champions, there's a different expectation, right? There was an expectation in the Super Bowl, right, about what happened. Obviously, it happened opposite of what a lot of people thought. I'm sure plenty of people lost a lot of money, but they were the champions walking in that arena, and they walked off that plane not thinking that that was going to happen. But it did. So now they got to go back. They got to redraw up the plays. They got to play again next year and bring it back. And it's like, I don't want there. A lot of times there's no second chance for a lot of these people, so I don't want them to have to redraw up the plays. I want PlayStation to come correct the first time and win the Super Bowl every year.
Yeah. Better string sayings, because asking where's the roadmap is disingenuous because the roadmap is obvious.
So Bender, I like you're a friend of the show. You're in here every week. We appreciate you. I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate your participation. I would say saying that somebody somebody on the panel said is disingenuous is a little over the line for me. That's basically, I feel like that's accusing us of lying, or accusing BRAP of him mentioning something that is not actually what he feels or thinks. I don't think that the roadmap is obvious because BRAP couldn't rattle it off the top of his head from memory, right? And then you could maybe have an argument, well, it's on you to go do maybe. Like, I say this about many things. It's not my job to go off and Google and like look on your PlayStation blog and check out the Sony corporate. No, it's your responsibility to message it, right? To market it. And I've had this accusation of PlayStation, right, for a very long time. Like, there's some times where they miss the messaging. There's sometimes that they make a very big deal out of something, right, that they don't need to make a big deal out of, and kind of are an active participant in causing all the wailing and gnashing of teeth from its fans because they wouldn't pay attention to it if you just shut up.
Yeah, and I also feel like the level of I feel like just based on last generation, I feel like there was more engagement by PlayStation with the PlayStation consumers, and and the other thing too is no, I don't think I'm being disingenuous. You talk about roadmaps, okay, but when is Wolverine being released? Did we get a release date for that? I know it's coming, but I don't see a release date for it. I mean, and it's not just that; it's a combination of many things. Bender strings. I feel like they've been a little bit more radio silent than they have previous that they were the last generation. We haven't had a showcase in 3 years or 2 years. 2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah. So I think like people getting upset over asking a question because you're comparing the behavior of PlayStation last generation versus this generation. I don't know how that's disingenuous. It's not like I'm up here making stuff up, saying like, oh, well, Jim Ryan, he ruined PlayStation 5 because he was a terrible manager.
You got fired.
Yeah, he got fired, or Sony is bankrupt. Like we're not saying those things.
They can't afford to put out. There's no first party games, so they can't afford to put them out every year.
Exactly. We had someone say that.
Yeah, and better. I think so. The thing you mentioned just here, I think that is good feedback, right? Is GTA 6? Where GTA 6 is going to land, probably causing a lot of uncertainty around marketing, right? Nobody wants to get in the way of that thing. I would offer one of Take-Two's own studios announcing a release date can kind of tell you something, right? Probably pretty certain GTA 6 is not coming out around the end of September, or else Gearbox wouldn't have announced that Borderlands 4 is coming out then, right? So clearly Randy Pitchford knows something, right? Was my contention from the state of play. So, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. All right. Chad, I'm just gonna ignore you now.
Yeah, I mean, Chad, why don't you go do that? You're the one who needs to defend PlayStation, who seems to not be willing to accept any notion that there's any discrepancy associated with the brand. So you go do that research, right? I'm sure you can find it.
Yeah. What did you say? His balls are itchy? What did you say? If your balls are itchy? I forgot what you said. All right, I'm going to move on to not PlayStation 5 critic reviews, but Monster Hunter Wilds. So Monster Hunter is currently sitting at a 90 Metacritic. It's actually 88 on PC, 90 on Xbox. I can pull that up here too. There's Xbox is a 90, and then on PC, it's an 88. I'll go back to PlayStation 5, 90. Okay. So some of the reviews here, a couple hundreds. VGC says Monster Hunter Wilds is confident, bold, and one of the best Monster Hunter games ever, thanks to its ability to stand on the giant shoulders of Worlds and improve it in virtually every way. I'm going to go down a couple other reviews here. VG 24/7 said, I'm already 50 hours in, and I can't wait to double, triple, quadruple that number in the coming weeks and months. This one's a classic as far as I'm concerned. Dual Shockers gave it 100 after 100 hours of gameplay and reaching Hunter rank 110. I can confidently say that Monster Hunter Wilds is a better game than World and Rise, largely focusing on streamlining and making the overall experience more accessible without removing the core principles that veteran hunters have come to know and love. The Guardian also gave it 100. Said you could pick up Wilds as you could pick up Wild as I can't even read. You could pick up Wilds as a newcomer and have a tremendous time playing through the story. You could stop there and it would still be worth the price of admission, but I will be playing it for a long time yet. I actually like that they said that you could actually pick it up as a newcomer and just, and still have a good time playing through the story.
I can attest to that. This
is that's actually
Monster Hunter, and
that's actually great. Yeah, that's great because that's always a concern of mine, like these big live service games, open world live service games or open world games where if you didn't onboard early in the first, the first time around, then you might be lost. Destructoid gave it a 95. Whether you're eager to dive into Monster Hunter universe for the first time or you're a longtime fan seeking a new adventure, Monster Hunter Wilds offers everything you need for an unforgettable experience. Capcom was truly done itself with yet another exceptional game that you don't want to miss. All right, so Nate, you're playing this game right now, correct?
Yeah, I am.
All right, so what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still pretty early on, but first impressions, anyone who played the beta, and I did hear this, there's someone who got it early, but I mean, I can confirm myself now. The performance is way better than the beta. So the beta and the benchmarks, that stuff meant nothing. Like, my computer is performing far above ever since the day one drivers from NVIDIA, who always knock it out of the park. Like I said, I'm getting upwards of like 140 FPS plus outside of the town. Also, that's also including the high resolution texture pack, which if you're on PC, you can grab that, which increases the fidelity to an unheard of degree. Like, it looks like screenshots can't even really do it justice. But yeah, I mean, they've done a phenomenal job updating it.
How do you get the high texture pack?
You just go on their store. So on the store, it's free. So right underneath where you would launch it, it just shows the DLC and it says free high resolution texture pack. Okay. And then when you click on it, it will load the entire thing. So it's like it's the game like again, but in high resolution texture pack. Yeah, I know. Trust me, I was so irritated by that. Well, but it looks so much better.
I'm gonna give them a double down check mark for that then. For not only putting it in DLC and not making it like a menu driven thing that's within the UI of the game, like it is for most other games, but then on top of that, actually having that be a separate executable of the game. That's like Call of Duty level egregiousness.
It was. Thankfully, my internet's fast, which I'm sure most of ours is in here, but it's besides the point. I don't want to reload 70 gigs all of a sudden when I thought I was about to jump in the game. And the only way I knew is because when I got in the menu system, there's a setting, because I was like ultra, and then of course you got to go double check, make sure everything's actually maxed out. So then there's highest, and I was like, why can't I click on highest and for the textures? And it was like, oh, this option is available when you have the high resolution texture pack loaded. So it's there, it's in the game, but then it tells you like, oh, you got to close the game and go download this thing, which, like you said, then is an entirely different executable. So yeah, I mean, that definitely sucks. I didn't like that at all, but yeah, I mean, like I said, as far as like the day one release, they did a really good job. I can't speak for all the mixed reviews and people having heart attacks over hardware. I mean, personally, like I said, I've seen some people trying to play it with some really, really questionable hardware. Like the last person that I know that was complaining they were having an issue, like they told me their PC was like $750 total. So
So now again, we have quantifiable objective proof that this whole you could build a PC for $700 instead of buy a PlayStation 5 Pro. Well, this is what you get, and on top of that, you're gonna have to upgrade that some bitch in 12 months.
Exactly.
So that
Exactly.
you're saying that this game isn't terribly optimized for PC.
No, man, it's great. Like I said, it's incredible. Like I said, like people were liking what they saw with just the benchmark tool and the beta, and this is like head and shoulders above that. Like my performance is way above that. On top of the fact that while I'm typically not a fan of frame gen is also really well implemented in here and doesn't murder the visual quality like it does, like it used to on some games. Priscilla will attest to that. She refuses to ever play Baldur's Gate with frame gen on. She it changed like the sparkle on the face of like her dragon character, and she was like, absolutely not. I like she is a visual fidelity person when it comes to that, like bar none. So yeah, they've done a really great job. I seen a real visual difference when it comes to that. And like I said, I'm not playing it on PlayStation, but I've heard from a ton of people that are. I'm in a chat with a bunch of people that are. They said the same thing. I heard because I did play the beta on the PlayStation, and that is what made me immediately choose the PC. Because apparently the performance mode was artifacting like crazy. Like it honestly looked like something was very wrong with the performance mode during the beta on PlayStation 5 Pro at least. But I heard it was even on the PlayStation 5, and now apparently that is completely gone. There's no artifacting or anything. It's completely cleaned up, performing great. So as far as I know, from a performance standpoint, it's been really great. I've been having a lot of fun with it. The fluidity and stuff is really important when anyone who's played a Monster Hunter. And then some people say they don't mind playing at like a lower frame rate. I can't do that. Like the fluidity of this Monster Hunter when you're playing, 60 plus is gorgeous. It's perfect. Needing to hit the monsters and the way they move and all these awkward movements and stuff that happens and being on target is all very important with this the high frame rate, or at least like a solid 60. So like, I mean, I would play, even if I played it on PS5, I would have to play it on the favor performance, or in this case, they have a balance mode on the PS5 Pro, which I'm assuming is usually the 40 plus unlocked. So it kind of does what it wants to with the VRR. But yeah, I haven't seen any of my personal people that are playing this game have been having a ball. They're not running into issues. And anybody I know that's playing it on PC, again, same deal, because number one, they're using appropriate hardware and they actually know how to use their PCs. I'm not gonna say that's everybody. Like I'm sure somebody's getting the smoke honestly from the game, but yeah, I've had nothing but awesome time with it. And then, like I said, in time, we're playing the game times 2 in the house because Priscilla is also playing it on a 4080 Super in the bedroom. So that is a completely different system on AMD CPU, which again, 0 crashes and it's running flawlessly. So it's not just because I got a 4090 and I'm brute forcing it. The 4080 Super is playing 4K in the bedroom with the high resolution texture pack, and it's been perfectly 100% fine. So yeah, I mean, honestly, we're enjoying it. Like I said, we're both still really early on, but everything is firing on all cylinders that should be there for a Monster Hunter. Like I said, I'm a longtime player of Monster Hunter, so I know what should be there, what I expect out of a lot of the monster hunts and the traps and other things like that. I think a lot of it's really there. I like the fluidity. I think it's a nice balance between Worlds and Rise, so it's not like super slow because of the I can't remember the name of the creature that you ride, but yeah, like that between riding on the creatures and stuff in the game, you can speed up a lot of the combat. Like I find I was flying all over the screen with the long sword and just going crazy and just real ninja like. And other people, you can run literally whatever you want, and it feels really good in this game. So I think they did a really great job just overall. Yeah, I mean, I can't really say anything bad about it, man. I think those 90 scores are well deserved. Hopefully, whatever's going on with some of these configurations, which is a detriment of PC. I always tell people, I'm like, look, there's that one configuration that could just be like the weirdest thing. Like I've been on PC for over 2 decades now, right? As a warning to people on PC, like Logic said, that 3% is crazy, right? You know, I remember remoting into someone's PC because you had to turn on one setting in their BIOS that they never had to touch throughout the life of their PC, and that is why every time they launched into Octopath Traveler, it went into a black screen. So like the PC can do that really crazy one-off stuff. So, you know, it sucks for everybody who's running into issues. Hopefully they iron it out, whatever's going on with that. But personally, in our 2 SKUs or 3 SKUs so far that we have tested the game on, we've had 0 issues. It's running really great, and Priscilla's even thinking about picking it up on PS5 so she can play on her Portal. So if that tells you anything about how we're feeling about it in this house.
Let me grab the super chat real quick from Street Shadow with another $5 super chat. Thank you, Street Shadow. Says, on a positive note, the slowness of first party has led to a rise in Sony's third-party relationships and the rise of Asobi as one of Sony's big studios. Thank you for that super chat, Street Shadow. No, I appreciate that perspective, Nate, on Monster Hunter. Logic, any thoughts on Monster Hunter?
I'm still in the early hours. I just got started tonight. You know, I would encourage people on PC who think they're seeing performance problems to definitely dig into the settings and play around with them a little. There's definitely, and it's not unusual, there's definitely some wonkiness. There's as good as NVIDIA is, there's definitely the potential for there to be weird conflicts where counterintuitively you toggle something in the settings and you actually get worse or better performance when you're expecting it to be the opposite. So initially I had, I think, high settings turned on, DLAA, and I was getting a worse frame rate than when I went back and toggled it to ultra and then just didn't touch anything. And I'm sorry, and I had medium ray tracing turned on also. But then I went back and toggled it to just ultra and didn't customize any of the settings. I just left it to whatever it defaulted to from ultra, and I'm actually getting better frame rates, even though it's technically using more VRAM. So again, you know, play around with the settings. They may not be right 100% copacetic and logical in your own mind here off the bat. But yeah, just before we came into the stream, like I said, I set it on ultra, medium ray tracing. The DLSS setting is at quality. And there's one other thing. It's 2560 by 1440p. I'm playing this on a box with a 7950X CPU and a 3080 Ti. And I'm getting in like the 70 frames per second. So I'm going to go back in and toggle it and mess with some other things and just see kind of where the frame rate settles out. And then eventually I'll get around to trying it on a 4000 series card.
No, that's a really good representation of people still on the 30 series, though. The fact that you're doing pretty well on a 3080 Ti with, like you said, ultra. So, I mean,
yeah, and I'm playing it at much higher level of detail than you actually need to, right? You would be fine playing it on high settings, knocking the ray tracing down to low or off. It's a gorgeous looking game. So, you know, if you need the performance, and I think it would be totally fine to play at 60 frames per second.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you want to get it higher than that, you just go in and tweak the settings.
I was gonna say I agree, unless your name is Priscilla, because Priscilla says she don't play that. She said max everything.
Yeah, and Priscilla, like Priscilla saying, running ultra full ray tracing frame generation on quality, getting 9 frames per second. So again, settings that are similar to one of the configurations that I've tried. I'm on a 3000 series getting 70 frames per second. You're on a 4000 series getting 90 frames. Like that makes sense to me, right? So that is at least an anecdotal disproof of a lot of the, you know, Sturm and Drang that I've seen out there. You know, and the notion that I saw somebody post that, you know, unfortunately, you know, Capcom, you know, graced the PC with like a broken port. Like I think that's a lot of FUD. And they were comparing it to the PlayStation 5 version, and I think they were just on this tip of PlayStation better than PC. Look, like in a PlayStation, you should expect to get a canned experience with like inexcusable, like absolute, almost near perfect, right, optimization. On a PC, you're not going to get that because we have 1,000 different hardware parts that people are trying to optimize for. again, I would still, you can give them a gig for not being super well optimized, right? Within anything other than a very narrow band of hardware that's out there. But but for the people on high end rigs, the performance is there right now. So like asserting that the performance isn't there is just FUD and disinformation.
Agreed.
All right, no, that's that. I appreciate that insight. I have not played Monster Hunter, nor will I. I'm just not into Monster Hunter, but I am playing this next game that we're going to talk about, Avowed. And Logic, I thought you guys on E2KG had a great conversation around Avowed this past Sunday, and actually it was a game that was on my radar. But after listening to you and the panel talk about Avowed and your experiences, I was like, I need to play this game. So I'm only a few hours in. I'm still kind of digesting my experience so far, and it's only a couple hours in. I will say this. What stands out to me, at least, and what I've enjoyed so far, is the combat. It seems pretty intuitive. And it's funny, Logic, the menu system, the UI, because I heard you slandering Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, I knew you'd hear that part.
Yeah. What'd you say, Nate?
Nah, I knew you'd hear that part because I was watching
yeah.
KG when they said that.
Yeah, I was like, okay, we're not going to slander, but I don't disagree though. I mean, the UI, it's a bit, it's not as intuitive, especially if you're playing on console, or if you're really, even if you're playing on PC, but you're playing with
it's pretty convoluted.
Controller. It's a little convoluted. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's better with keyboard mouse on PC, like much better.
Do you remember what a caltrap is, or what is that how you say it? Couch. Do you remember what that is?
No.
From playing. See, you don't even remember. See,
yeah,
that or caltrip. It's called a caltrip or whatever, but it's a thing in the game that stops you from. You can only use it like 3 times before you rest. In Baldur's Gate 3 because it's a D&D thing. But that's what makes it so. I side with Logic on this one because he always mentions Baldur's Gate 3 is like the hardest game to go back to when you haven't been on it, because you're like, there's all these mechanics that make it really great but make it really tough to come back to when you get away from it.
And I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah,
literally had periods in my life where I had like the DM manual, like the player's guide, like the monster manual, like I had sections of it memorized.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't a. I mean, look, I figured it out, but I will say this to your point and what you guys were talking about on E2KG, definitely a pretty easy UI in terms of swapping out weapons and using different spells and using different consumables. Like I was like, okay, this isn't overly complicated. But I think again the thing that stands out to me so far is I like the combat. It's not as clunky as I thought it was going to be, because you do have the option to if you have a shield, you could deflect the shield, or you can kind of I think you hit the 8 button, you can kind of like dodge out of the way from attacks and things like that. And there's a combination of ways you can approach combat. I'm using a spear and grimoire right now. I think Logic, you're using a different combo variation and attack and defense. So I like those that part of the game. That's part of the game that I like so far, that I could say, okay, yeah, like this is actually pretty good. Like I'm enjoying this. I did go with I think it's a war hero. Is it war hero? I forget. I meant to write this down because there's different.
Your background.
Yeah. So my background's a war hero, which the different backgrounds can offer
you and
different dialogue trees.
You and Priscilla chose the same background.
Yeah, because I was like, I was looking through different backgrounds. I was like, I kind of like the war hero, but some of the dialogue when you pick the war hero is kind of interesting. It's like the dialogue come across a bit intimidating at times, or but anyhow, again, I'm only a couple hours in. I am playing on the Series X. Logic shaking his head like, why BRAP? You have the PC, and it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. I'm actually going to switch over to PC now. To
Yeah,
play the
I was
game.
gonna say, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
If you think it's intuitive now on the controller, play with mouse and keyboard. I'm telling you, as someone who typically prefers the majority of my games with the controller, I found myself constantly putting the controller down to play with mouse and keyboard on Avowed. It's so much faster. Like if you think it's already intuitive, watch how much faster and more you whip around combat with the mouse and keyboard. It's beautiful.
Oh, look, Logic give the chef's kiss. Yeah, yeah, but I'm good at because when I told Logic I was playing on series because there are some performance hiccups. I just switched to performance mode. There's still some hiccups. There's some weird things that are happening on screen at times. Not a big deal. Just I know when you say those things, people get upset.
There's a balance mode, isn't there?
There's a balance mode. I was playing balance mode.
I was going to tell you to try the balance mode because I did hear from a couple people.
Off.
It wasn't doing it for you either.
Yeah, no. I was like, I too much screen stutter for me for my liking. I'm like, I'm just going to switch to performance mode and want the smoother frames and so but yeah, it seems pretty intuitive. It's a pretty straightforward game. I think the tutorial isn't sometimes my issue with tutorials, they're just too much. It's like reading a fucking book and then they show you like an image or a video of like the move that you're supposed to practice, or the moveset they're trying to show you. Like I don't care for all that. Like I just want to get into the game and start playing. But I thought that there was a nice balance here with just screen pop up, telling me what I needed to do, and then letting me get back into the game and playing. So, but it definitely an Obsidian game, and I love by the way, I love the intro with the Obsidian games. I thought that was cool. But so those are my initial impressions. I am going to switch over to PC though and play a bit more with PC.
I think you're gonna like it that much more. Trust me.
Yeah. The Grimoire stuff's pretty cool though, by the way. I haven't tried playing with the wand, but I like the Grimoire, like holding the book. And I was using sword and then I was using a spear. I don't like this, like when you go stealth, because like you're like in other games when you go stealth, like you could see and that's because you're in the first person, but you can't toggle between third person. I just think it's kind of weird when you're in the first person. I do like you could toggle between both. I think it's kind of weird when you're the first person there, like you're in like shrubs and you're stealth. Is you're like you're, I don't know, like everything's invisible, like the shrubbery's invisible or whatever you're in, the tall grasses is like invisible in the first person. But anyhow,
which to
not a big deal, just the
stealth is like one of the weakest parts of this game. So if you play it, if you're gonna be mad that you can't really be stealth in this game, you just might want to skip it because it is not for someone who wants to play like a really stealthy character. Because once you stab somebody in the back, everybody's on you.
Oh yeah, that happened to me. Yeah, that happened to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll continue to happen.
But one more thing. I am trying
Mm-hmm.
not to compare because what I often do is compare games.
Yeah.
Especially Western RPGs or CRPGs. I often compare them to, you could probably take a guess,
Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to judge this game on its own merits and not comparing it to Baldur's Gate 3. And I do want to talk about too later on the conversation about some of the critiques or criticism by critics of this game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something we talked about, Logic. I do want to get to that a little bit, but yeah. So, and hey, I believe you're almost done with the game.
Yeah. I'm near the end. Like I said, I'm about an hour, maybe hour and a half outside of the ending. So like I said, I mean, I've enjoyed my time with it. It's been a really fun game. Like you said, a very Obsidian game. I mean, I guess some of my bigger takeaways from it is, at least I always got to put this asterisk, speaking from playing on PC on max settings, it is a beautiful game. Cause I've definitely seen some rough screenshots, from some of the Xbox guys, stating like character models and stuff, but I'm like, it doesn't look like that on my game. So I can't, abide by that, but, yeah, I mean, the game is just beautiful. I'd say was constantly taking screenshots, turning off my HUD. I do wish they had like a this is something I don't know how hard this is to do, but like the disappearing HUD, where it's like you could put it as like it pops up when you like get into combat or something else, or like you move. So like if I want to take like a screenshot, I could just kind of stand still for a minute because there's no photo mode. Like, so you just kind of have to turn off everything and take a screenshot. So I wish they kind of had like that for like a HUD, but it was fine. I eventually got over it and got really proficient at turning off the HUD when I needed to. The exploration in the game feels really good. Like I feel like I want to explore. It encourages it. There's a lot of good nooks and crannies to kind of get into, and just really get rewarded with. I swear there's a chest around every corner. So yeah, like loot wise and stuff like that, you're not really having a problem. The secrets I felt were pretty well designed as well. Like rewarding you for going through certain puzzles or discovering certain things within the world that are just kind of off the beaten path. There's so much to discover in each location. I felt like they did a really good job with that, so nothing ever really feels like nothing's ever really one dimensional. Like the side quests. A lot of times, side quests will send you somewhere, and then you'll discover 3 or 4 different things, and probably come back with a unique item, because there's something else over there, or something else that you explored along the way, or at the location you get to. The dialogue I feel like was really well written. So like the moment to moment dialogue in conversations and stuff like that, I felt were really great. I love the companion input a lot of them had. So it was really important to me to like pick who you want, like that fits like your band of like companions when you don't need someone specific in your party, because like having Kai and Marius in the party was hilarious. They were constantly giving each other crap all the time and just said the craziest stuff, but they always had your back. Like it was pretty good. And I'm a little biased for Kai because he is the person who voices him is also the voice actor for Garrus Vicarian from Mass Effect, and Garrus is a beast, and he obviously sounds just like him. And he kind of gives you like if Garrus was like, I don't know, like off a pirate ship and rough and like not in space, one of the homies on the ground, and like he kind of gives you that same vibe. So yeah, I kept Kai in my party like the entire time. But yeah, the companions are at least the early ones I feel like are really good. I love most of them. The last one's kind of weird. Some of the comments and stuff that she says are kind of crazy. I mean, she's funny, but yeah, Slow-Mo had a lot to say about that character because she's very sexually charged, which is ironic because there's no romance in the game, but she constantly makes like passes but at you and like other party members. So I don't know, man. She is just literally crazy. Like, I mean, that's the point of her, but it's funny. So I felt like they had like a good dynamic with everybody when everybody's in the camp talking and stuff like that. The amount of dialogue and stuff I felt like was really good. The bounty system is cool. It kind of gives you like a targeted, hey, I want to go after something tougher, go out here and get rewarded for it, and bust some heads. So yeah, I felt like that was pretty cool. It gives you like a central location in each area to go to just be like, all right, now I want to go, tackle something tougher, and stuff like that. Like you said, the combat itself feels really good. Specifically as a mage, which I'm biased because I typically always choose mage in these types of games. So the fact that the mage combat felt really good was a bonus. I still really like the melee combat though. I found myself switching it up. This was something that Logic mentioned on E2KG that I really loved. When I was using my my bow, I don't have to worry about arrows. Like this was a really big thing for me because like I did the same thing they were talking about. I was literally laughing while they were discussing it because it was like the first couple times I shot the arrow, I'm like, look, where's my arrow? Like I need to go get it back. I need it. Like I'm not paying for arrows, okay? Like, but then you realize they're infinite. So I felt like that was really good. And again, this was another point that Logic made that I loved, that was a big reason I kept Ranger in my secondary slot for so long, or a bow, was because whether you were near or far, you could just pop off on somebody with a bow real easy. So that was another point that was really good. I feel like I'm giving it a lot of positives. Probably my biggest downturn on it happens later, as you get longer into the story. The dialogue to gameplay balance seems to waver, and they start like they want to talk to you like every 5 minutes for like 45 minutes, and I'm just like, bro, can we move it along here? It's like I feel like you're trying to elongate the game unnecessarily. I already know the ending. Just let me bust through the door and smack the bad guy in the face and have my happy ending already. Like, let me get it over with. But it's like they just want to talk constantly, and it's like, all right, cool. Like, I enjoyed it. The journey was great. Like, let the journey go. Like, it's like they got to the end and they just don't want to let it go. So that's probably like my biggest critique. And the fact that the story, the overarching story, I feel like it does. The journey is great. The ending is lackluster, because it's so predictable. Like, you're like, it's very, as Logic said earlier, Michael Bay. You came for the explosions. Like, you knew why you were there. Like, it wasn't because the story was amazing in the end. So yeah, that was probably the biggest thing. The whole journey and everything on the way there. A lot of the characters you meet are all really cool, and everybody feels really believable, right? Like, they really care about this land, and you trying to save it and what's going on in the conflict between you guys. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed my time with it. So far, like I said, it feels like probably like a solid 8 if I detract for all the things that were kind of like because obviously overarching story being fairly weak is definitely a big downturn on an RPG. But everything else, all the other systems and the moment-to-moment gameplay was really there and really good. Like I said, the exploration was just really fun. Like, I had a ball going around all the different cities and talking to all the different people that live there and stuff like that. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed my time with the game. Like I said, I give it about a solid 8 thus far. I'll see how I feel when I pretty much end it. I don't think it's going to change much. For comparison's sake, Priscilla, who also plays a lot of Western RPGs, well, I asked her before because I knew you were going to ask me about the game, and she completed it. So she said, I think she said a 77, 78. So she was like just shy of that 8. She was like, I'm not giving it the 8. So yeah.
All right. No, I appreciate that insight, Nate. What about you, Logic? What have you been playing it a bit more since Sunday?
I played a little bit more. I'm not as far as Nate. But yeah, I continue to enjoy the game for the same reasons that I mentioned on Sunday nights. One of the comments in the chat about Obsidian. It's so crazy they released a series and didn't have a game to follow. Really missed an opportunity. That's in reference to Neverwinter Nights. Neverwinter Nights was not an Obsidian licensed IP. The publisher who owned that had the license to that IP was Infogrames, which eventually became Atari. BioWare actually did the first Neverwinter Nights. Obsidian did the second. So they didn't do a series. They didn't do a sequel to it because that wasn't an option that they had. I'm sorry, he meant Fallout. Okay, same thing. Not their. I mean, not their IP. There's some weird convergence of DNA in their past history because Obsidian actually did the first Fallout, but then BioWare had it. So again, it wasn't Obsidian's option to do the follow-on game. But yeah, I continue to enjoy it for the same reasons, right? That I mentioned on Sunday night. I'll continue playing through it for the same reasons. Obsidian is one of my top 5 favorite studios of all time. So I have expectations of them, and they meet those expectations. So it's nice to see them do this type of game. A lot of people are making reference to them, needing to maybe go back and do some older games, and that's when I fell in love with them, when they were doing kind of the isometric overhead Dungeons and Dragons style games, Icewind Dale, Neverwinter Nights. But I give Guerrilla a lot of praise for doing the pivot out of Killzone into Horizon. And same thing, I appreciate that Obsidian, has done a lot of different stuff. I saw one comment in the chat about like they stagnant in game design. But again, if you go back and look at Obsidian's pedigree, I would actually push back against that. They've actually done quite a number of different things. They don't do the same thing all the time. Grounded in Pentiment are not like their historical games that they've done. Again, they've done a lot of things like Fallout, Icewind Dale, Neverwinter Nights 2. Avowed is not that, right? So again, and I'm just saying, you can have, Pillars of Eternity is not Avowed.
Yeah, Pillars of Eternity is
yeah.
definitely not that.
They're doing something different here. And again, I'm not sitting here arguing it for it to be game of the year. But they're staying within the lanes of their capability. They're not overscoping, which is a endemic problem across the industry right now. They're doing things that they know that they have the capability to do. They're doing multiple projects. They're hitting a degree of velocity and production output that other Xbox game studios are not maintaining. And they're putting out good games. So I'm having a good time with Avowed in the same way.
Yeah. All right. No, that's. I like what you mentioned. That they're not overscoping. They're kind of staying in their lane and doing the things they do well. I know one of the criticisms from some of the reviews was with Avowed at least was that it didn't do anything really to kind of push the genre forward, right? And like you and I were discussing, Logic, I don't, at least from what I've played, again, I'm a couple hours in. I think it's okay that it doesn't necessarily push the genre forward, so long as it's a good experience, and yeah, go ahead, Logic.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation you and I had earlier in the week, right, is, people come at games from different perspectives at different times, right, in their lives and for different purposes. And we're all in this bubble, right? So hopefully everybody by now has watched Piscatella's talk, right? And hopefully everybody now acknowledges the reality that like the group of people that are in here watching a gaming podcast on a Friday night, that is not a short gaming podcast, by the way, right? That are like you guys are at best in the 16% of the industry, from the or 60% of the market. But then you're even a subset of that 16%, right? The people who are sitting in these podcasts and paying attention, right? That's an even smaller percentage. I go back and forth between somewhere between like 5 and 7%, right? In my opinion, there's too much, way too much, in the gaming community, and I think it's very pertinent to the conversation we had tonight about PlayStation, right? Where I will often slander the PlayStation community for having this stuck up in the nose perspective on games that basically says if a game's not a 9 or a 10. And it's not coming out of Housemarque, Naughty Dog, Sucker Punch, Insomniac, Sony Santa Monica, then it's not a good game, right? And that's to me that's an unfortunate perspective to have. I've spent time as a game reviewer. BRAP, I will sometimes accuse you of this, right? Coming at a game where you have an inability to unbuckle yourself from the reviewer critic perspective and just find the fun in a game and enjoy it, and not heap all of these, like I saw some of the comments in the chat, Bender and Siri, I want Oblivion to level up. It doesn't move the game forward. Like having an inability, and I'm not saying you guys are in this mentality, I'm picking on that as exemplary, right, components of this dynamic. Having an inability to just sit down with the game and have fun, and like to constantly be viewing it from that lens of I'm scripting a review in my head, that's a problem for me. That would be an unenjoyable, miserable way to be a gamer. I really look at it as sad, right? And there are people in this community who that is their life for them. Like they can't just sit down and have fun, right? And we talk about this. I've talked about this on other shows where I talk about kind of the sociology, right, of gaming and the evolution of you as a gaming persona over your life. Like hopefully you guys will go through decades of gaming and get to a point in your lives where you've been gaming as long as I have. And what you'll hopefully recognize when you get to that age is that you'll go through evolutions, right? And you won't be the same kind of gamer that you were when you started gaming. And that you'll go through phases and you'll go through periods of time. Like I've been through periods of time where I wouldn't touch a live service game. Like it was absolutely against my religion, right? And then I spent time where I got drugged down that hole. And that's all I did. And I found the fun in that, right? There was a time where, because I was in grad school, like I had a hypersensitivity to how much fun I got out of a game, and that had to be deterministic. It couldn't be a question. Right? I saw on BRAP earlier this week, like I didn't play Tomb Raider games during that time of my life because I didn't have time to get stuck in some stupid ass puzzle, right? And not be able to get Lara Croft out of a room and then feel like I wasted like 30 minutes of game time, which was the only 30 minutes of game time I had in between taking a study break, right? So that's when I developed a great affinity for like first person shooters and racing games, because those are things I could play in 30-minute, 1 hour chunks of time and be guaranteed of the fun I was going to get out of them. So again, playing games where you're constantly looking at it through this critic's lens, like I just think is a difficult way to be. Avowed for me is a game that's fun, right? I mentioned this on Sunday. They don't put a lot in your windshield. There's not a lot of cruft in between it. Like Baldur's Gate has a lot of systems, right, that you have to figure out how to handle, that you have to get organized in your head, right? It gives you a lot of providence and a lot of latitude, and it's super fun, right? But it's also not something that I ever want to sit down and play for a 30-minute chunk of time. So again, I think there's room and there's space, and there should be room in the conversation for having a discussion about a game that's just fun to play without constantly heaping on it. BRAP, I accuse you of this all the time too, right? Every game doesn't have to be evaluated for whether or not it's game of the year, right? Or a game of the year nominee. Some games can just be fun.
I don't know about that, but no, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you.
Well, to your point, right, about the critic lens, right? Well, this was something, again, me and Priscilla discussed a lot, because when seeing a lot of the reviews versus us playing it, right? And then, of course, me seeing some of the interviews going on with Gene Park, from the Washington Post and stuff, and him talking about basically the crunch he's under right now versus, the amount of we just talked about like all these games coming out, right? Now, the thing to remember, someone who is a solo YouTube act, right? They play all these games, they review all these games, or like someone like Gene, in his case, he is the sole reviewer for Washington Post. So, hey, here's all these games, and play them, expediently, to said degree, back to back to back, where, sometimes you're getting like no break. He was saying he's playing 3 or 4 games right now. He's like, he can't talk about none of them. Like it's just a constant hit, right? And then one of the big things that happened with this game, of course, was it launched next to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, right? And every review almost was like, well, it doesn't let me do this that Kingdom Come did. It doesn't let me do that, which Kingdom Come did. And I'm like, it's not Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, though. If you want to play that, then play it.
And Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is an extremely clunky game. The combat is not as smooth. The combat is very exhausting.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
Like you can go into Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, get into melee, and you can have fencing passes with an enemy of like 15 times where neither of you scores a hit.
Yeah.
And there's some fun in that do loop, but there's surface that you have to dig right past to get to that point. Then after 15 passes where you both parried each other, when you do score a hit, it's exhilarating, right?
Yeah.
But that fun, my point is that it's 15 right back and forth, so transactions away, whereas the fun in Avowed is right there, right? And so in a lot of ways, and again, I hate saying things like this because then we get all the people like, oh, you can't compare it to that. Like, one of the things I love about Spider-Man is that fun in the loop is immediate.
Yeah.
Right. There's not a ton of like cruft that I have to get past to have fun. Like just swinging through the city is fun. Right. And when I get into combat, that fun is immediate. Right. And that's what, to me, a lot of the combat transactions in Avowed is like it's very quick. There's not a bunch of crap it doesn't put a ton of stuff in your windshield like Baldur's Gate. So,
No, I definitely I'm in the same boat, right? Like I said, a friend of mine is 100+ hours deep in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and she constantly gives me crap. It's like, let me know when you want to play, the real, best, WRPG that came out this month. We're always giving each other crap, but it's like, but she's having fun and I'm having fun. That's ultimately all that matters. Like, I don't care that she's having fun in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and she didn't care that I'm having a ball over here. Like, we're playing two different games. And next month, you know what I'm saying, very shortly here, we're gonna be playing Split Fiction together. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you got choices, you got to make them. And the biggest thing that I take away from a lot of stuff is like people's inability to regulate how they feel about exactly what they're playing. Because ultimately, like you said, even in here between all of us, like you have on at your F1 hat, right? You have mentioned plenty of times that you were playing Formula One, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, I don't know. Other than Lewis Hamilton, I couldn't tell you nothing about Formula One. You know what I'm saying? I know it's open world racing and so on and so forth, but I get the gist of it. But like the nitty gritty of like how intense the Formula One games are, and like, bro, you are not moving to first place just because you're good at driving games. Like, you got to know what you're doing. But it's a whole different thing, right? But that's your fun, right? And it's like we could be playing two different things, or like I said, we're often playing three different things in here. This is a rare occasion that we're all trying Avowed. You know what I'm saying, at the moment. But again, we don't need to tear down each other's experiences or this, that, and the third, like a lot of people seem to, right? And like Corey Massey said in the chat, you know, for him, it was in a bad place because he was already playing KCD2 and now he's Monster Hunter, and it's like, it's not a must play. And like, that's fine too. You eventually there's only so much time in the day. So if those are your priority, they're your priority, and you could get to that game later or never. You know, that's all right as gamers.
Yeah, the one pushback I'll give on Corey Massey is the kind of inane comment. Yeah, you were doing it wrong. Corey, you play games the way you play games. I play games the way I play games. If I didn't pay attention to an instruction that you paid attention to, I don't care. At the end of the day, my evaluation is the same. The do loop in KDC 2 is not the same as it is for me in Avowed. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Please do disagree with me. That's my point. We all come at games differently. Right. Yeah. And if somebody's having fun in a game, then somebody can have fun in a game. I mean, Mighty Keith posted a video about this the other day that I thought was actually funny. Like, so me saying I enjoy a game, like, it's not really effective for you to counter it, like, but it's a bad game. Okay, fine. You think it's a bad game. How does that change whether or not I'm having fun with it? Like, that doesn't matter. My point is, and my analog to this is kind of in movies, and perhaps this is the same conversation we had earlier. Like, look, when an Oscar contending movie comes out, I look at that through more of a critic's lens. In general, I don't tend to watch an Oscar contending movie for fun, right? If I want to watch a movie but I can watch an Oscar winning movie, contending movie, and give it that type of critique. But I can also go watch Bad Boys, right, and just have fun. And that's all I'm saying. I mean, what point I'm bringing up is that we have so much conversation and exert so many personas in the gaming community, where we almost suffocate the notion of having fun in games. And that to me is a bad dialogue, a useless dialogue, a no value added dialogue. Like, and again, this is representative of a lot of the contention that happens in the community. There's a group of people having a discussion about having fun playing a game, and there are people who try and participate in that same discussion with a critical eye, with just a total obtuseness that those parties are having different conversations. And I think, right, in the contention that we all love video games, we should maybe have a little latitude and room for people just having fun playing a video game and being able to have that conversation.
No, I agree, because that's ultimately all I've really taken from my friend's experience with KCD2 is that, okay, you're having fun. What's going on? Is your horse still really slow? You know what I'm saying? Like I'll throw the jab in, you know, but ultimately the point is you're 100 hours deep and you're still losing sleep. That's perfect. That sounds awesome to me. And I'm about to be done with this game, and we're going to move on to the next game at some point. And the key is that we're all having fun differently, right? Even though I tend to share, ironically, right? I tend to share a lot of games that this person likes, but Kingdom Come, you know, is one of those games where I just haven't jumped in it like the way that she has, and we're both okay with that. Like, it's not a competition. Yeah.
And so the comment I'll make, right, Corey and imply, again, I'm just picking at this to highlight how we're having two different conversations. Corey, you say your pushback is at the expectation of combat. I'll start beginning of your sentence. There is no pushback. Are you visiting your intentions on my opinion of a video game? That's totally asinine, right? You want to say that you don't agree with my opinion? That's fine. I didn't ask you to agree with it. I don't really care. You not agreeing with my opinion in no way has any. What am I gonna feel compelled to stop playing the video game? Who cares, right? We're having a decide, and you're saying all I'm doing is pointing out that your experience might not be the norm. Again, when I am talking about what the market perspective is or what other gamers' uptake is, I'll caveat that conversation with that preposition. That's not the conversation I'm having here now. I'm having a conversation about how I feel about Avowed versus Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. They are both good games. At no point did I draw any attempt to make any quantitative comparison between the two about scores or how or one game is better than the other. What I said is that the fun of Avowed is more accessible to me and it's easier. And that's the difference between those two games. Right now, regardless of how I feel about the scores or where they line up in Game of the Year conversation or all this other stuff that quite frankly is only a conversation between people inside this bubble, the accessibility of the fun for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 there hasn't hit for me yet. And what I'm saying is we should allow the latitude for that conversation to be had. My pushback on you is you're representing the exact type of behavior I'm talking about, which is that you're not allowing the latitude for that conversation to be had. You're trying to put it in the box of right or wrong, or whether it's the norm. That's a conversation to be had. I don't really care.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that.
Yeah.
But go ahead,
No,
Brett.
I know. I was going to say. I mean, I think it's important to, you know, you talked about playing games with that critical lens, and I understand some people do that. I think it's also probably important to maybe step back at times because gaming is a form of entertainment.
Mhm.
I can't speak for everyone. Maybe I don't really watch movies with the critical eye as if I'm looking to nominate a movie or discuss whether this movie should be in contention for an Oscar nomination for movie of the year. You know, I just don't. I don't do that. And I try. And it's interesting because the critique over Avowed was, oh, it doesn't move the medium, but if it sticks the landing in the medium, right? If it does that and it's an enjoyable experience, that's okay too. And that's kind of my only point, you know, that I think some people and I saw some of the reviewers and even people in the community were saying, well, it doesn't do enough to move the medium forward in WRPGs or the RPG genre. Okay, so it doesn't. But in terms of where it sits within that genre, does it do it well? Is it a solid experience? And if the answer to that is yes, then that's okay. I know, Logic, I always talk about playing the goaties. You know, I like my goaties. But I think but I think it's not everything. It's okay if something's not a goatee because it can still be enjoyable.
Absolutely.
You know, you can still
I
have
enjoy
fun.
plenty of games per year that are not in my top 5. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I just, you know, and I just think that's something I think gets lost a bit in the conversation. That yeah, okay, it didn't move the genre forward, but is it a good representation of that genre? Is it a good RPG?
Well, and the question, did it do what it set out to do, right? There's an expectation for those things. Like that's what I said. Those two games have very different things that they set out to do, right? Despite both being WRPGs. And that's why like some of the comparisons I find between them constantly are so silly. Because I'm like, I get that you played one before the other, or vice versa, right? But it's like they're two very different games. It's like what Logic was saying, Forza Horizon versus like Project Cars or iRacing. Like they're both games in which you're hitting the gas and the brake, but those are two racing games with very different, very different expectations, and things that they're setting out to do. And I think that's the same thing between these two games. One is very arcadey, very to the point, very, like he said, ease of access to the fun is just like wham, jump in, go crazy. And Priscilla has also said the same thing. Like she was just jumping in and having a ball. And as opposed to that, right, there's other people who are looking for that expectation for what they wanted in a video game or what they like as the KCD version, right? And they're having a ball with that game. It's not saying that they're not having fun. I mean, they clearly are, right? But the problem is when the comparisons happen, people are comparing two different things that are doing the whole idea in the first place is that they're very different. Like they're not meant to do the same things for each other, despite sharing a genre, right? A RPG, Western, specifically
coming out at the same time.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
I want to pick on Corey here a little bit. I don't mean to pick on you, Corey, but I'm going to.
No, pick on him because he's the PlayStation community version of Erodimus.
Because oh man. Well, I mean, the issue that I have here is that, you know, first of all, Logic's not attempting to downplay Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 to bring up Avowed. He's not doing that, nor is he using Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 to bash Avowed. I maybe you're not saying that he's doing that, or
no, he is. He's trying to.
Okay.
But the point of that's dumb is I bought both games. Right? Both games are fun. I paid for them with my own money. I simply said one does a thing, one doesn't do the same thing.
But I think the issue the issue that I have around this conversation, not the conversation we're having, Innate and Game Logic, but something with Corey at least, and I think this is where gamers fall into this trap, is that it becomes like it's never about grades. It's about winning and losing, you know, and that's the problem. And it's like, well, one game has to win, so the other game has to lose, and that's not what gaming's about. Gaming is subjective, right? We all agree on that.
It's always a binary conversation, and it always like the results have to be mutually exclusive.
Yeah, it's not a binary conversation. It's not which game is better, or it's not about which game won or which game lost. It's not about that at all. And I'm just like, I mean, I think all we really said was that, like, look, like there was some criticism about a game that it didn't move the genre forward, and perhaps that's okay if it didn't move it forward, so long as it did the other things. So long as it did. I've just lost my train of thought here. So long as it actually stuck the landing, for a game that's considered a WRPG, and that's okay.
And I'll even walk it back a step from that, BRAP, right? Again, if we get to a point, and this is why, right? Although Warwana doesn't agree with me. For instance is there's a difference. This is why I love including awards, right, as part of the criteria of how we review market uptake and overall critical opinion of a game, right? And why I said a few weeks ago, sales, review scores, and awards. Because the difference between awards and review scores, in review scores, for most reviewers, there's no choice, right? When you talk about a review by a big outlet, there's tons of different editors reviewing different games. There's some freelancers, right? There's typically not, they've all gone particularly in the past few years, that every review score is somebody's opinion. So there's not a deterministic rubric of let's rank every game that's ever been reviewed, right? And your review has to be comparative against those historical review scores, right? To yield its end result. That's not what they do. And so there is no binary choice that people are making. But when it comes to awards, you get a small set of games to make a definitive choice about, and that forces some tiebreakers. So the outcomes of awards are a little different, and they're kind of along the lines of, hey, if you were stranded on a desert island and you could pick one of these 6 games, which one would you pick, right? Which is a conversation that I love having, because again, it's in a different perspective than review scores. But again, that's not what we're doing, right? This conversation is about how accessible and how much fun a person is having with a game. And like you're saying, BRAP, right, in the argument, right, to declare one the winner, to constantly have awards runoffs between games, that becomes the conversation in the gaming community. And I feel that's reductive, right? And not healthy or useful.
Yeah, and then you have idiots like Albert G. And yes, I'm going to call you an idiot because of this shit. This is the shit that really. Yeah, anyone that says Avowed is a great game is lying to themselves. How do you know someone's lying to themselves, Albert? It should not be taken seriously. Like, your comment should not be taken seriously. Matter of fact, your profile picture should not be taken seriously. Are you fucking serious? Like, first of all, who the fuck are you to sit there to say someone they're lying to themselves and they should be taken seriously? Like, I mean, like, it's like you're fucking like 10 years old.
Yeah. And again, if we're at the end of the year and we're having a conversation about game of the year, right? Then that's a different perspective. But when somebody's simply talking about I have tons of fun playing Diablo 4. But I would not yield, I would not try and put up a credible argument that Diablo 4 should have been in contention for game of the year. Right? My point is that there's different conversations to be had about games. Same thing I'll say about the PlayStation versus Xbox thing, right? When BRAP and I are constantly having conversations about the quantifiable objective perspective on where those two vendor competitors are, and we get Xbox people, right, who are having a different conversation because they're rendering their opinion, they're rendering their faith in the brand. And we're like, no, what we said was one is selling more than the other. Right? There should be allowance for having a conversation about how much fun you're just having playing a video game. Because quite honestly, before we all got into content creation and podcasting and and people started coming into all these podcasts to pay attention to it, think back to when you were a kid. And this is again one of these long conversations that I've had about having fun in gaming becomes more and more difficult as you get older when you lose the wonder, right, that you experienced when you first started.
I think
you should just play video games.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. I see people like Compost was, instead of looking forwards, we stay where we are, and in some cases go backwards. There's a lot of slop still being made today. Composite, there's always slop's always been made in gaming, if you want to call it that. I mean, that's not some new phenomena.
Yeah, shovelware is not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you. I mean, what are you judging that based on? Was there less slop last gen? I guess. I mean, how do you judge that?
And same thing, Compost Smurf. Anybody talking about again? Who, in the context of this conversation, why would any of that matter? I don't make decisions on what games I play or what games I enjoy based on whether or not other people are talking about them.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's what I told him originally in his original point. It was like, he said he didn't quantify it there, but originally he did, where he said it didn't reach the must play level for him based on the other games he had to play. And I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, that's fair. We're not arguing that. Like, all you said, it was the accessibility of it per game is different, which is true. Like,
oh my god. Hey, Corey, seriously, he doesn't have to like the slop though, right? Or no one's saying he has to like the slop. What I'm asking him is, how is he determining that there's more slop?
Well, yeah. and again, the notion that it's slop is your opinion.
That too. Yeah,
and nobody said he had to like it.
Yeah, exactly.
How many times do I have to tell you that I don't care what you think? How many times have I said that in this podcast?
I don't understand that. Like, oh, like no one's saying he has to like the slop. Like, Corey, how do you arrive to this conclusion? Wait, I mean, it's like, I don't get it. Like, it's mind boggling to me. I mean, look,
yeah, you just asked him, how are you quantifying that?
Yeah, I'm asking you, how are you quantifying slop? And the response I get is, well, he doesn't have to like the slop. Okay, well, yeah, no shit. So he doesn't play it. That would be obvious, Corey, that he probably wouldn't play a game he didn't like.
I mean, one thing I haven't done is I haven't been dismissive of your guys' comments, because what I could simply say,
well, I'm being very dismissive,
is that the aggregate perspective of this game amongst critics is that it's a good game. So therefore, any pushback that you have against it should be dismissed outright, and I shouldn't even be bothering to respond to it. That's what I haven't done. That's me showing deference and respect to your opinion.
I mean, that is true. Right? The game is certainly sit at an 80 Metacritic, and an 80 actually is considered a good game. And think about this: you're getting an 80 out of you're getting an 80 meta from and again, we talk about difference of opinions, people's different perspectives, experience of video games. And I always say this: people say that Metacritic doesn't matter. I'm like, no, it actually does, and it does because it's tied into some instances developers
Bonuses.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
and I think I don't know if it was Shuei who talked about Metacritic. There's somebody in the industry who's talking about Metacritic anyhow, but that's not the point. Point is that if you can get a consensus amongst a group of people who have different tastes in games to say, hey, this is a good game, it's something to pay attention to.
Yeah, and the comment, "Same media you clown throughout the year." I would read the room and put things in context. If you actually listen to the show, we typically don't have a ton of pushback against the Metascore. I say people should not take a Metascore as their own definition of whether or not a game is good or bad. But as BRAP just said, we do look at it as an aggregate feeling to show us the average of the critic uptake, right?
Mhm.
What we do push
Right.
back on the media, what we do clown the media about, though, is doing all these tabloid pieces where they extrapolate a lot of meaning out of things that aren't actually quantifiable and inject their own opinion to it and then assert that they're fact. Or the media who, something happens and they say, oh, that's just like I said, when that's just like full of crap. So there are things we clown the media about. We generally don't clown the media about the aggregate review scores.
Compost, please, how did I take your comments out of context?
He may have meant me.
I mean, I'm trying to understand that. Like, how are we taking your, like, how?
I mean, maybe I did. I mean, there's a lot of stuff flying in the chat
I don't know.
where I'm not paying attention. I'm not catching every single exchange. So, if they're out of context, I apologize.
Yeah. Let me get the super chat here. Street Chat with the $10. It says chiming in as someone in game dev, not trying to start drama. Slop today would be anything from Midnight Works. They create AI simulator games. We have banned them on our store multiple times. Thank you for that, Street Shadow.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. But either way, it's plenty of great games out there to play. And honestly, I hope you're having fun. But yeah, to your point earlier, Logic, you said a lot of people are getting older. I spoke about this recently about a lot of people being jaded in gaming. Some people really need to take a break or get another hobby on occasion, or the gym, or anything besides.
Okay. Well, I got to address something here. Okay, first of all, so Compost, I didn't lie. I misunderstood what you said. It's not a lie. Okay. So you need to understand that. Number one. Number two, you said there's still more slop. Okay. Well, then, or you still, hold on. What did you say? You say there's still a lot of slop. I got to go back and read this. Where is it? I think you said there's still a lot of slop today. I think that's what you said. Still a lot of slop. Okay. Well, I mean, based on what? Okay, that's fine. You can leave. You won't be missed.
He's not going to answer that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Wow,
enjoy fun.
quantifying
Yeah,
that.
like this, like you're like a man baby. Enjoy your fun and make an excuse. You show your true color. I mean, this is the kind of dialogue we don't want in this chat. Like if you can't be an adult, and you can't like you responding that way, Compost, just shows me like that you are not. I'm assuming you're probably a teenager at this point, and I could be wrong. But I think but in making excuses, you show, I mean, we're trying to have dialogue here. And yeah. And I said, look, I misunderstood what you said. But again, like you're saying, there's still a lot of slop. Okay. Don't play it then.
Yeah. And Corey Massey, although I disagree with 98% of what you say. I do appreciate your comment, right? That it's tough to have a conversation with the chat because we have to type and you just get to respond. I get that. When I'm on other when I'm in the chat on other podcasts, particularly because a lot of my opinions are require some amount of verbosity. I definitely get it. Sometimes I'm trying, like what I'm trying to cover, I have to type in 2 messages. So yeah, I appreciate that. So Corey, if I don't think you doing a reset would cause me to agree with you more, but if you think that I'm misconstruing your opinion, it's fine to say, hey, call a timeout, right, and say that this is what I meant, or clarify, or however you want to approach it.
Yeah, we need I need to have a call-in feature where the chat can call in.
I mean, but
You
sometimes,
figure that out.
like we said, like although a lot of our conversation is grounded in there's a lot of
I don't know.
complexity and
I
stuff
just
to it. The ultimate thing, all we were saying, is that both of these games are fun. Like, I mean, that's just it. Like, it's like
Yeah,
it
they're just
wasn't.
fun in different ways.
Yeah, just fun in different ways, and that's literally what we were saying. All the critics are saying, like, oh, I had fun this way and not this way, and it's like, okay, so that's just it. They're just doing two different things. That's all we were saying.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
where I will extend that, right, and step out to where I am making a statement on the market and the media, is that, in my opinion, there's no need to be dismissive of Avowed because it doesn't do the same thing that another game is doing, or because it isn't a level up from Obsidian because they got acquired by Microsoft, or because it doesn't move the art forward, right? There are tons of games that fall into any one of those three buckets that various people find fun and enjoy playing. So there's room for them on the market.
agreed.
Yep.
Yeah,
All right.
I don't necessarily disagree, Corey. We often every week seem to have to do a ton of arm wrestling to get to that point of understanding.
All right, but anyway, I'm gonna ignore that because they're gonna drag you on, and I know you gotta eventually get to bed, Brett. I know you go to bed
No,
earlier than me.
I already removed compost Smurfs. I just don't have any fucking tolerance for stupidity. I
Oh
just get
yeah,
tired of it, especially when it comes to video games. I'm like, it's video games. Like I don't understand why people get their sand in their ass or whatever you said earlier, Logic. You know,
yeah.
over something like video games. You know, I don't get it. So
And
it is what it is.
Albert G, now that you're out of timeout, I think it was you who got timed out. Maybe I'm wrong. I
It is
agree
him.
with
It
you.
is him.
Okay. I agree. I would not listen to anything Alana Pierce has to say anymore, although I used to be a big fan of hers.
Yeah. All right. On that note, that's all we have for topics. Go ahead and wrap up the show. Please hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live, and know that we're not like other shows. We don't we just don't tolerate the nonsense. So, and if that bothers you, it's not the show for you to watch. So, Nate, want to thank you again for joining us this evening. Appreciate the time as always, sir.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be found, let me know they can find you.
Typically every Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern time on the Otter Players podcast. Although depending on the topics we come up with, it might not be one tomorrow. It's been a pretty light week, and we have murdered some of these topics already. But yeah, that, or like I tell people all the time, I find me on Twitter or Blue Sky at the Real Innate. Typically just gaming, man. I'm about to plan on going to do that right now. I'm about to go see Priscilla wants to hop on this Monster Hunter and let's get it cracking. So enjoy your games, people. Enjoy your games. At the end of the day, I hope that if you are in this hobby, that you are at least enjoying gaming. Because if you're not, I don't know what you're doing here.
Yeah, it goes along with it feels like if you judged by the dialogue, right? If you ran like the whatever, like there's used to be scripts out there, like or websites that would run a script against like your verbiage, right, in your like Twitter posts, and like tell you like what kind of person you were or like how you're feeling. Like if you ran one of those against like, I feel like half of the gaming community posts, it would just come out like, as EJ always says, it's like it seems like most gamers just enjoy being miserable.
It does indeed.
Then I don't understand why you play games then.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Logic. I don't know if you want to be found, but let everyone know they can find you.
I'm not worried about being found. I'll mention. I'll quickly mention. Like this year, to me, this year has gotten off to a good start. I'm playing Avowed, Sniper Elite Resistance, Monster Hunter Wilds, Civilization 7, and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and I'm having a ball. Actually playing those games that caused me to fail out of the live service gaming loop, because as the panel here knows, I've been playing nothing but Call of Duty since it came out last year. So I'm having a good time playing those games. Hopefully other people are out finding games that you enjoy as well. If you're playing games like that, I welcome you aboard to the 4% that I myself recently rejoined.
All right. Well, you can find me at BRAPS_podcast and at Blue Sky Social at BRAP-podcast. And we'll be back next week. Can't believe next week's March, by the way. I'm excited. I'm actually happy it's March. March Madness.
I'm
Spring.
extremely excited because Split Fiction is
daylight
right up on me.
Yeah, moving the clock forward.
Formula One season starting.
F1 season starting.
Yeah, I gotta talk to you about where to watch that, by the way, because
you need. I have to give you propers for. Most people will look at this hat and won't recognize that it's Formula One.
Really?
They'll think it's
really?
hieroglyphics or something.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm not even a Formula One fan, and I recognize it. That's like, it's one of those. To me, it's like one of those obvious symbols. You know what it is. At least I think you do.
Yeah, I've watched enough F1 to know, but like I've never watched like an official season. So yeah, I definitely got to talk to Logic about how to watch that, because Hamilton going to Ferrari got me mad hype. I'm feeling I'm feeling some old school vibes from the original Ferrari days with Andretti and all that stuff. So yeah, I want to see this season.
He's not dating Nicole Scherzinger anymore. So I don't get my pit eye candy. It's unfortunate,
right? But yeah, we'll definitely have to talk about that, man. It looks like it's going to be a really good Formula One season alongside all this good gaming. So I definitely want to partake and check that out.
Yeah, I'll be learning along with you, because I pay attention to the sport, but where I fell off of like being as hyper. I mean, BRAP knows this. My big problem with sports is I can't do sports half speed. Like my problem is if I get into sports, I have to know all the detail in the ins and outs. I have to watch the entirety of the season. So I have not been as deep into Formula One since we lost the Speed Network, which is where they used to all be televised. And it went to like IPTV. So that I have to figure out myself this year, but I do plan on figuring it out here in the next few weeks. So I'll definitely share what I find out.
Sounds good. He said you better have a show tomorrow. 1 hour on Power Rangers.
Yeah, well, oh man, that's funny.
Yeah, that's a whole joke. One of the podcast members, we were giving him crap because we told him to watch Cowboy Bebop and he didn't, and his excuse was he was watching Power Rangers. We were like, what?
What? That's wild. That's funny.
Yeah, so we dragged him for like forever for doing that.
All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you again to the panel, and thank you to everyone in the live chat. Again, I'm just going to say, look, if you guys are here to have these conversations like that happen in other podcasts, this is not the podcast for you. I'm telling you right now, I have zero tolerance for it. So,
but we can agree to disagree.
Yeah, look, we can.
I have agreed to disagree with you several times before you even knew me, and you've always been cordial with that. So if you can agree to disagree and have an honest discussion, like you're never going to get in trouble in here. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, we're not going to. When you start saying stuff like cope and like deal with it,
keep that same energy.
Keep the same energy, or like just like that, like you like to say, Logic, like the hand wavy stuff. We just don't do that here.
Like, look, I mean, Bender, Chad, even Corey. Like, I appreciate you guys in the chat. Where I start hitting my limit, and it's not just with you guys, right? Where I start hitting my limit is with a PlayStation gaggle, right? And I use gaggle in kind of the animal phylum sense of the term. Right? What is a gaggle? Is a geese a gaggle? Right. What I have a problem with is when I get a gaggle of PlayStation people who just will allow zero quarter for there to be any criticism of a PlayStation. Like that's a thing that I think requires some introspection, right? Like if you're in a group where there can be no quarter allowed for anyone to have an opinion of any criticism, that's the thing. And again, that's what I feel like is the thing that we've pushed back against, right, with the Xbox community, that you go into a conversation with a lot of the Xbox. And when I say Xbox community, I say extremists, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying, believe me, I'm exerting great effort to not refer to you guys as PlayStation extremists, but there are pockets of PlayStation extremists that like you can't have there's no room for a conversation that anybody would dislike TLOU 2. Right? Impossible to have a conversation that TLOU 2 is a great game, but I had problems with it. Right? So in my opinion, they're just like we talked about the opinion of having fun with games regardless of their critical score or uptake or awards. Like there needs to be room for conversation amongst the console vendors as well, that there are things that they do that make them imperfect.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree. But this, it's interesting. We talked about the Sony thing. It's like, how dare you? They're infallible. No, they're not.
Which is crazy because I'm one of the biggest PlayStation fans you guys will ever know. Like PlayStation till I die up in here, but I'm gonna keep them on their toes because I want them to continue to be the PlayStation I have known and loved for 30 plus years. I don't want that to go away.
Yeah, I mean we've all spent. I've been on this podcast how long now, BRAP? Is it 4 years now?
No, not 4 years. 3 years.
No, are you sure? No, I think 2021.
Has it been that long?
I think it was 2021.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Right. Yeah.
So it's been 4 years. In 4
Holy
years,
shit.
in 4 years' time, we have spent a copious, and I don't mean that in the term that the new kids use the term cope. We have spent a copious amount of airtime.
Which they don't even use correctly, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Establishing that PlayStation is the market leader, right? That all of the data indicates that the market wants PlayStation, that it doesn't want Xbox. Like an incredible amount of time, right? So I feel like a thing that should be borne in consideration is, hey, you guys say that the data aligns with PlayStation, but you're also indicating that there are these wobbly totems right within the PlayStation brand. Maybe that's something we pay attention to. And I'm not saying you guys reacted this way. I'm saying, but there are conversations you try and have with people like that, right? And the notion that there's anything that could be improved upon, it's just an unacceptable vein of conversation, right? Just like in business, we always have a thing called process improvement, right?
Oh my gosh.
As great as a company might be, right? There's always room to improve something.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, don't worry. We didn't bring up Nintendo, but I got a list of things they could improve. But we ain't got that kind of time.
we don't have time to talk about the Nintendo internet strategy.
Oh wow. Yeah, exactly. The archaic Nintendo internet strategy,
which feels like they recruited a bunch of high school kids out of Mrs. Moldavi's computer comp sci class, and they're off like programming the Nintendo online strategy with like BASIC and COBOL.
Well, now we know where the new Doge employees came from. But I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Yeah, actually, some of that Strav interesting story. A friend of mine works for federal government shared with me earlier this evening about a young kid walking in and asking her questions, and she's like, "Who the fuck are you?" So, yeah, she literally said, "Some young kid." She's like, he probably just hit puberty.
Jeez.
Anyhow, I could talk about that, but no, great show, everyone. Everyone, hey, have fun playing video games, because ultimately that's what it's all about. And we'll catch you next time. And hit that like button, do the YouTube thing, and we'll see you next Friday. Thank you.